Township of Cohasset, March 18, 2014. Casting.
To order at 7 p.m. We will have a brief work session before the regular meeting, so I believe we just need to call the roll for that.
Okay. Becker?
Here.
Slack?
Here.
Van Loo? Here. Vangeli?
Here.
And Kern.
Here. I will turn the floor over to Lorraine to begin with the budget discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been working very diligently to try and present a budget for your review that would have no increase in the levy. That doesn't necessarily mean there'd be no tax increase, just that the amount that the governing body would ask the taxpayers to contribute would remain the same as it had been in prior years. In this year's, called the preliminary budget, even though it's just a draft for your review, we're anticipating using a little over $1.3 million of surplus to balance the budget. We have $1.9 million available. That's a really strong reliance on surplus. All of our other revenues were based primarily on what we physically received in 2013. Some of them went up, some of them went down, but the part that most people are normally interested in is the actual tax levy, and that remains flat as it stands right now. Just as an option, the state does allow you to increase your tax levy 2%. 2% increase, I know nobody wants to hear tax increases, but a 2% increase on the levy would equate to $73,349. That's a 2.0 cent increase. I've learned recently that the average value of a home in Cohasset Township is $170,000, and that would equate to a $34.68 increase for your local municipal taxes.
Per year, right?
Per year, yes, I'm sorry, not per quarter, that's per year. So it's just under $35 per home per year. You want to go through department by department, just real briefly?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Our first department is administration. They contributed a 5% reduction in their operational expenses. The mayor and council, they don't have an operational budget for $100, but the salaries and wages remain the same. The municipal clerk, did you want to comment on the budget at all?
No, that just scared me. I just submitted basically what I have in years past with the reduction that was requested, but we're doing the best we can with what we have. You just need certain things to operate.
The clerk's operational budgets decreased by 10% as requested by the governing body. Salaries and wages, although readjusted between the departments, remains the same as well as prior year. Elections was reduced by 10%. It's a very small budget. It's only $2,000, but they still did contribute their 10% reduction. Finance reduced the OE by 25%. That sounds really great, but in 2015 there were some one-time expenditures that are not going to be repeated in 2014, so that definitely contributed towards the reduction. Collection and taxes. Councilman Becker and I just met with the tax collector. Some of the original decreases were reinstated because there were some difficulties in producing some of the paperwork that has to be redistributed due to an unforeseen error. So that budget is only reduced 3%.
Before we leave financial administration, I would like to point out that we added a time management system of $5,000. We have a significant expense. I mean, obviously our salaries are our largest expenditure. So I thought it would be prudent to put in a time management system to keep better track of the time.
I'm sorry, I neglected to mention that. That's part of the increase in financial that. For assessment and taxes, there was no deduction. We did have some difficulties, again, that required some additional paperwork to be produced and distributed to all of our residents.
The tax collector pointed out that if we don't spend money on tax collection, we won't get tax collected. So
Very strong argument. Legal services did increase slightly. to account for additional labor, attorney fees, litigation, and bond attorney fees. Engineering had a very slight increase of $500. The historic site, I was told Kurt was going to be here.
Yeah.
Did you want to go over your budget at all?
I know we reduced it, so
Yes, you did.
we did what we're at, and I think we still have some projects that we're putting together that we want to move forward on. Put in the line down and be able to start this year.
I might want to suggest, I noticed in your historical site, you had salaries and wages of $1,800, which is more than we paid before, for the secretary. And I'm not arguing with the amount, it's fairly nominal. It's just that the historical site and the the environmental secretary work seems like it's almost the same thing. So I was wondering if you could rationalize that by making them the same, like I think the environmental was like 1,200 or something like that for the secretary.
We don't meet in the summertime, right? We take 2 meetings off in the summer.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the historic, does the historic meeting, I don't think they meet every month?
Yeah, December we took off because it was right on.
Okay. In November, I don't think we met either, but,
We were supposed to have it, but the timing with supposed to get it in the paper.
That's right.
okay.
We have a
All right. Then I can see the rationale for the disparity.
Okay, anything else? For planning board, there was the same readjustment in salaries and wages that affected the clerk's office, just the opposite effect. And John Gardner is here. Did you want to discuss your budget?
A little bit, we reduced what we could. There's only like 2 line items. It's paper clips and stamps, I think. Everything else is fixed, so.
Well, I have a question in that regard. I think the largest expense is the salaries and wages, and I raised this point last year, and I'd like to raise it again this year. I'd like to understand better. I mean, how are your attorney and your engineer paid?
Hourly,
Per meeting? If there's no meeting, there's no pay?
no meeting, no pay. That's a big one with me. I know the mayor knows this and Mary does. If we don't have something, I think, if we can clump a meeting up, I'll do that. Meaning, I'll pick up a couple pieces and push them back. In summertime, we might miss 1 or 2. In the winter, I think we probably missed 3, so we miss as many as I can imagine, still give the coverage we need.
Which makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering whether the secretary should be paid the same way. If there's not many meetings, there's not much work.
Well, she gets a lot of requests that aren't in the meetings.
Well, it's $29,203. I think I mentioned the salary survey last year, which the next highest in the county is $20,000 for a land use secretary pay. And there are many that were significantly lower than $20,000. And I don't understand why our land use board secretary pay is almost 50% higher than anybody else in the county.
Frank, those townships you were comparing to, do they also have a separate planning and land use board, or do they have just one like we do?
In the survey that I was looking at, it was all bucketed together.
Bucketed together? Okay.
So I made the recommendation last year. It wasn't approved. I'll make it again this year. And I would say last year I asked for it to be $15,000. This year I'll ask for it to be $20,000. But I mean, there was 8 meetings and there was 14 meetings last year. That's more than $2,000 per meeting. The year before there was 8 meetings and there was still $29,000 we paid the land use board secretary. I can't rationalize it. I would recommend $20,000.
We have had this discussion, so I think a lot of the board knows my position on this. We list a ton of hours. we get, she'll spend days with open requests and pulling plans for people. And she's in the office a ton of hours, and she's given back a number of hours to us at no charge whatsoever. She works 5 hours a week, I think, for free. I really can't ask for it. She's always available to us. And we're not really, land use is, everything we do is governed heavily by ordinance and municipal land use law. It's not the kind of thing where she can just quickly pencil whip an answer. She's $7 an hour, check it for you. Not that that's a bad thing, my daughter works at one. What we do, every single thing we do is important. And can be potentially damaging to the township. We just need somebody with the skills that she has.
How do other municipalities manage it? I'm significantly less.
I have no idea. I don't think they do very well.
Well, I think people know your position and people know my position. Another question along the same lines was the legal budget and the engineering budget and the planning budget. Which of those get charged back to applicants? All of them. Meaning that it shouldn't cost the town anything?
Meaning that unless there's a meeting, whatever they do is paid for by the applicant. So they do work on, there's two, probably about 10 different issues, but two of the things at the mall that we're talking about, right? Escrow money is applied and worked down for that. Everything else is what they do down.
So if they attend a meeting, is that charged back to the applicant?
No, that's what we pay for. We pay for that. Ordinance changes, we're talking about a generator ordinance and another one for instance, something about we'll send that to the attorney, they'll look at it, and then they'll generate a sample document. We'll work through it. There'll be a couple meetings about it.
So if a planner or an attorney or an engineer attend a meeting, and it's discussing whatever it's discussing, whatever the agenda item is, that doesn't get charged back. That attendance at that meeting doesn't get charged back.
No, we need that.
Okay. That's all I have.
Does anyone else have any questions for the land use board? Okay.
I did add in $10,000 in legal to their original request, just to cover for litigation based on what was spent in the prior years. The land use secretary had footnoted that they expected the legal usage to continue as it had in the past. So I did increase that from the request of $1,000 up to $11,000.
I won't use it unless I move it.
And that is litigation because we're being sued? The land use board's being sued? Is that what that litigation is?
I would imagine. I'm not privy.
Yeah, possibly.
Historically, you could eat up that $10,000.
We'll use that in some issues going forward, certainly. And we have, if we don't use it, it stays in the budget, just because it works in the town and never use it. I have many years when we spent $60,000 in the late '90s. I mean, I probably spent $80,000 a year in legal, and then it fell off to whatever it is now. So it comes and goes. We have it, and if we don't have it, we're going to spend it anyway.
Any other questions for Landy? The next department is insurance. That's both employee group insurance and the other insurances, which would be our professional liability, the blanket, any other insurances that we have. Those are based on what the insurance company provided and what our actual rates are for the employee health.
And this year, we're kind of getting like a little break, and then next year, they're going to really pay us? Is that what it is?
For the health, that's true. I mean, what we were able to do was extend pre-Obamacare coverage until December. But come December, the rates are likely to go up like they are for everybody, unfortunately.
The next department is police, which was discussed already. They did reduce their operational expenses by 7%. Salaries and wages are up based on the contractual amount.
I did want to point out that based on our last meeting with the chief, we did reduce the overtime request. I think it was $150,000. We put it down to $100,000, which is still significantly higher than the actuals in 2013. So I'm hoping that towards the end of the year that we can save some money there too. I hope that's a conservative figure.
The next department is emergency management. That was based on prior years. There was a slight change in the operational expenses. They increased about $4,000. Emergency management coordinator is here.
No.
I believe that there was a specific project that we wanted to get going on for emergency management. I'm not sure what that is, but I believe that was the rationale for the $4,000 increase. The contributions to both of the first aid squads that serve the township have remained static as what they had been in the prior years. The allocations.
I think while they're here,
You want to go over your budget?
Chief, if you want to come up just to the mic, that way we'll catch you on the recording, just with your budget as far as how you guys are.
We submitted our budget.
Okay.
I don't have a copy of that yet.
No, I mean, is there any major capital purchases that you're considering this year? Any financial difficulties you foresee?
Raising your rates.
No, we're pretty we're settled right now. We didn't buy a vehicle already from last year's funds, and we are not anticipating anything this year.
Okay, and currently you serve Phillipsburg, Powhatan, and Alpha? That's it right now?
Correct.
Is there,
We still have that second truck on going today to cover Powhatan area on Open Friday.
now with the situation in Bloomsbury, have you seen an increase in calls to south of Route 78?
Yeah, within
You
the
have?
past 2 weeks, we've had, don't quote me on it, at least one or two.
Okay. I'd just be curious if we could get some numbers to see if there's any lapse in coverage and if you guys are.
Well, at the meeting that we had with the mayors,
Mhm.
they did discuss that.
Yeah.
And they actually had those figures with them that when they don't respond within a certain time frame, then you get called.
Yes.
And
And we emailed you that when
Mhm.
that came out, but we're able to pick up the rest of the end if need be, because we're here already. We're in your town, and that would be no extra cost.
Okay. All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the emergency squad?
did you were looking for like a satellite. Did you find one?
We are in talks with someone. Yeah, I believe there's something in the works, yes, that would bring us permanently.
Yeah.
But for now, they're still 8 to 4, Monday through Saturday. Guaranteed one of our.
So don't have anything happen on the weekend?
Well, no, we always have 24-hour coverage, but we have dual crews. One dedicated just for Alpha and Powhatan, Monday through Friday.
But the rest of the time, we are staffed in the station 24/7.
Never elapsed.
Excellent.
Should the contribution to Bloomsbury remain the same?
Yes.
So, okay, I don't know why I was under the impression that they used to get 12 cents. I see 10,000 all the way across it. So.
Because I saw a letter recently from Bloomsbury that said they'd like.
Well, they're
12.
asking for more funding, I know that.
Well, that may be where you got the 12. I saw 12 in their letter.
Oh, no, all right.
Under fire, we have the fire hydrant service, which remains at the same level of funding, and the Powhatan Fire Department, including their insurance payment that the township pays. The fire truck itself is down in the capital portion of the budget. The municipal prosecutor remains the same for salaries and wages. We did briefly go over the DPW, Department of Public Works already. The amount of the salaries actually came down 1.5%. Councilman Becker and I met with the Department of Public Works and Councilman Slack last Friday, and there were some adjustments for things that had been left out of the budget originally. So there are new operational expenses for traditional Department of Public Works items has decreased from $67,000 in 2013 to $54,000 in 2014. Some of that is because of the items were reallocated. There's now a separate line item for snow removal, vehicle maintenance, and tree maintenance. Even though in the past they were thought of as separate line items, they weren't actually broken out in the budget, so they were dependent upon other operational departments to make sure that they had their funding. I'm sure everyone's aware that we had a really exciting winter and that we did have some additional expenditures for salt over and above what we would traditionally have. That also leads to an increase in vehicle maintenance because they were used a little bit harder than they have in winters past, and potential for additional tree maintenance from trees damaged from the winter as well. The recycling salaries and wages looks like it has a dramatic decrease. That's only because the building service worker was properly removed and added under the public buildings and grounds where it should have been. Previously, it was lumped in recycling coordinator. It looked like there was an inflated salary there. So that is now properly allocated between the departments. Public buildings and grounds itself, the OE went up 15% from 2013. All these sub-accounts there are itemized, so you can see which individual items did actually fluctuate the most. Animal control previously did not show up in the current fund budget. They were previously paid 100% out of the animal trust. That has traditionally not been enough to fund the entire budget for salaries and wages and operational expenses. So this year we were proactive and included an allocation for salaries and wages and operational expenses, which will hopefully prevent the trust from being overexpended and forcing that appropriation to the following year's budget.
So this is in addition to this?
Yes. The Environmental Commission, I believe Councilman Slack is going to comment on that.
Yeah, we were able to trim down what our other expenses were last night. I thought at the end of last night's meeting we actually had the other expenses down to $650 rather than $750. And the salary and wages is just $1,200. That's for our secretary to attend our meetings. Basically, we never use up our other expense money, so it's usually put back into the general fund at the end of the year, but it's allocated in case we do have things that we want to do. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward for our environmental commission.
For parks and education, I'm not quite sure what the education has to do with parks, but that's the way the account is titled. The OE decreased by $500, and that includes a separate line item for the donation to recreation. Does anyone here know
There is
recreation?
Bill Ortel. There he is, yeah.
Do you want to comment on the budget?
Bill, if you want to just come up to the microphone and just speak to your budget.
Well, we have we're anticipating for our registration fees $39,430. That coupled with what we anticipate with concessions, $9,500 in fundraising, $9,000. Normal town donation is $10,000. Total of $67,930. $67,930 in income. Our expenses, non-negotiable expenses, are for football. Basically includes our helmets and etc.
Safety.
Cheering, fall soccer, street hockey, wrestling, basketball, softball, baseball, spring soccer, field hockey, and tennis. Where the expenses are going to be about approximately $37,830. Our utilities, $1,550. Insurance, $10,600. Banquet expenses of $1,000. Field prep and maintenance repairs, $3,500. Background checks, approximately $700. Training and certification, $750. licensing fees $450, and unanticipated expenses about $1,800. Total of $5,800, a check balance of $97.48. This year we put in some dugouts at Crestwood Field. We're anticipating we just purchased some batting cages will also be installed at Crestwood Field. We'd like to put in dugouts at Warren Glenfield, and we're just trying to upgrade our developmental sports in the township. We're seeing some good numbers with the people playing the sports, and we'd also like to increase right now we pretty much have kids up to the 8th grade. We'd like to start including U15 sports and all, U15 leagues in all our sports, which is to give the kids who don't make the high school team someplace to play. Keep them busy.
Keep them busy.
So those are older children.
We want to expand to the older children. Yes. Right now we pretty much it's 8th grade. They go to high school and that's it. But we see a lot of kids that are not necessarily making the high school team, and they still want to stay active in sports. And we can a lot of the leagues. I know the CBL basketball league has U15, U16. I'm having my directors check out the other leagues and the other sports to see if we can expand it that way. This is our 60th year doing sports in Powhat, so we're excited. We're probably going to have some type of celebration this year, a birthday party of sorts. But we appreciate everything the board has done for us in the past and this past year. And like I said, we're looking forward to the future years.
And Bill, I spoke to.
And there might be some lights at the hockey.
I spoke to Maggie with the fundraising about establishing a separate type of account where we can watch what you guys fundraise, just to keep an eye on that, because I don't think I was clear with you guys last year. So if we have a separate account where we can see the actual fundraising dollars, to see that would be much.
Break it down on a report for you too.
Yeah, that would be.
As it comes in and show where it's in a separate account.
Yeah, that would be a lot better. So, does anyone have any questions for the Rec Association?
How much does each parent pay, like, to play for their children?
Each sport, the registration fee for each sport is $55 currently, which we've been able to keep down, and that's it's not the lowest, but it's certainly not near the highest. We're probably lower range of what the surrounding communities have charge. $55 per sport per child.
The parents are paying that much already.
And it's $55 if they have 2 children, it's a little less, and 3 children, it's even less than that. And after that, there's no more. If they have 4 or 5 children. Quintuplets make out.
I just am confused on something. I thought I heard you say that the town contribution was $10,000.
Traditionally, it's $10,000. It's been about $10,000. We just anticipate. We don't know what it's going to be. But it was $25,000.
Right. Jim, is 15 the right number, or is 10 the right number, or is more?
I don't.
Well, that was the funding.
Yeah, and Lorraine, we didn't put that in, right? We left that blank or we didn't include that because I wanted to have a discussion about that, right?
I do have a notation that you want to have a clear representation for reporting requirements, but the latter number that Councilor Becker commented on is what we currently have in the budget now. The 15,000. Yes.
15, okay. Yeah, I think if we do that again, because I think you guys did fundraise very hard for that, and if we just have a way to see that you're fundraising, I think that's a fair mechanism if everyone on council is okay with that.
What is that? I mean, is it 10, 15, or 25?
It's well, we pay the insurance, correct? So we pay the insurance, the 10, and then it would be either another 10 or 15 on top of that. So the town has always paid the insurance.
All right, it doesn't say anything here under that for other expenses, it doesn't say anything about insurance.
Insurance is
It's in
probably.
the insurance line.
The insurance, yeah.
We actually pay the insurance because it was cheaper for us to pay the insurance than go through the town. So that's how it's, but it's, you in fact pay for it because you give it to us, but we get the insurance.
But Obamacare won't impact on it.
That's helpful.
That's just health.
Just checking.
I hope
I suppose, you know, it's like this.
not. Might be on page 3,000.
So we're agreeing to pay the insurance plus a matching contribution on the rest.
Yeah, with the reporting that we can see. And if we could get that, yeah, that would be very helpful. Then we can see the yeah, that would be awesome. And just put that into a separate account, that way we can see what your fundraising, and then that's the dollar. Yeah, that would be helpful, thank you.
Can I suggest maybe we pay the insurance, which would be to 10,000 plus 10,000, up to 10,000 matching, so we pay up to $20,000 in total, rather than 25. I mean, we went from 15 to 25, and now we're getting lean again, and we're going to have more expenses. It's up to you guys, but.
Frank, last year, they received 25,000. This year, it's 15,000.
Well, the
They're
20
taking it
No.
the
already.
25,000 includes the.
Included the
Yeah, the
insurance.
insurance, yes, yes.
That was the idea, anyway.
It is 15,000 in reality.
Yeah, the grand total would be 25.
Right now, there's an appropriation in there for 15. So that would be the total. If there were a $10,000 separate check and they used that to pay their insurance, then there'd be $5,000 available for your fundraising contribution.
Oh, but I thought you said it was under insurance.
If we paid it ourselves, it would have been under insurance, but that's not what it sounded like. It sounded like recreation paid for it and we used the contribution that we made to reimburse them for insurance. Is that
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I guess my question is, how much of the town's money did you spend last year?
we had gotten 10,000 for insurance, and then we just gotten the 25, but it was within the last 3-4 months. We got-
Okay, so you did get 25 in total. Okay, well, it's up to you guys whether you want to continue that at that level or not. That's-
I like to keep it the same, at least.
When you did your fundraising, which figure was your fundraising amount? The 25 or 15?
For the 15. Yeah, the cap was 25.
But ultimately, you paid out 25.
Yeah, the total was
So
20.
that's why it's 25.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to keep it the same as last year,
All right, well, then
but
then it's 25 that's in that line. If
yeah.
if the way we paid it last year was through a check to you, but we increase it to 10 by 10, right?
So there would be one check for 25.
And then we keep track of the fundraising,
Yeah,
separate account, and show that to you.
yes.
Any other questions for recreation?
No, after, but when you do things like this, where you increase the things from here, there, and here, then you have to recalculate, you know? So we will not have a cost.
If you wanted to maintain a flat levy, then we would be taking more from citizens.
And at some point, you know, you can only take so much out of surplus. I think I think this is like a working session. I think we're hearing from people. And
Yeah.
I think we'll have to put all the numbers back together, like we did with DPW, and come back and see what works. But it's good to know what, I appreciate the information.
This is a good starting point.
Yeah, it's,
Midway point. Midway, yeah, we're near the end now. All right, anyone else have any more questions for Bill? All right, thank you.
thank you.
So, but you did a very fine job.
All right, Lorraine, we actually have to do a bid opening. Sorry. All right, this is for lawn mowing and trimming services. We received one bid for this. Yeah, it's going to be really hard.
Go right to that line item.
Skip right ahead. Yeah, hell of a chocolate mix. All right, for total lawn care and landscaping services, 471 Elizabeth Ave, Somerset, New Jersey. The lump sum to mow and trim the municipal properties is $10,274.88. And this will have to be reviewed by Kevin, but this is the bid. Who is our current provider of this service?
One and only, huh?
Want to know, that's, we
About the
usually get a
same
lot
level
for
as
this.
last year, isn't it?
Yeah, that's very
Good.
It's the same guy we had last year.
Yeah. Good. Okay, so, Wanda, do we have to take action on that, or can we wait till Kevin gets here? Or
Kevin should review it, but I'm sure that he's going to be fine because he's had it for the last 5 years.
why don't we make a motion to approve this bid subject to Kevin Benbrook's approval?
So moved.
Okay, Becker,
Yes.
Slack,
Yes.
Angelou? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
$45 an hour.
10,274, 88.
88 cents.
88 cents, that's it. There it is. Okay. All right, Lorraine, we can continue on.
To municipal court, I don't think that we've spoken about municipal court.
Excuse me, Lorraine, would you put that speaker in between you and Jeff? I can't. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
For municipal court, there was no real change in the salaries and wages, just a differencing in allocations for a violations clerk. The other expenses remain static. The largest increase in the overall budget, the total budget itself went up $176,000 from 2013. The largest increase was in the red light line item that went up from $165,000 to $275,000. Last year we were under budgeted. It led to an over expenditure, and this year the extra large appropriation hopes to capture all of them so that we don't have any over expenditures.
Can you just clarify what that is?
Yes, that's a fee that the vendor charges per violation. Is that an accurate description for the work that they do?
Correct.
Capturing the information.
And there's different tiers according to how many summonses have been issued.
Correct.
So that's why you never have an exact dollar amount that you can expect, but you don't know how it's going to fall.
Completely dependent on the number of violations.
Violations.
Well, if that expense is up, the revenue's up too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The public defender is a new line item for our municipal current fund budget as well, similar, to the animal trust that is normally paid out of the public defender trust. The past several years, it has been a deficit. It operates at a deficit. So this appropriation in our current fund hopes to pick up the slack so that we don't have a deficit and we don't have to, again, be forced to raise it in the 2015 budget.
Well, it depends on the number of cases again, because it's $200 per case, correct?
Correct. Our construction official, that budget is also split between the other trust, where all the construction fees come into, and the current fund budget. In the past, that also operated as a deficit. There were not enough fees brought in to cover the entire cost for not only the construction department, but for all the labor for the several people paid from that
Do
department.
we need to take a look at our fee schedule?
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea, but
Because I don't know when the last time it was looked at.
it's probably be a good idea every couple of years just to review whatever fee ordinances we have, just to make sure we're up to date.
I know I had to pay $500 to put a roof on.
David? You wanna do that?
What's that?
To look at our fee ordinance for the construction department
Yeah, I could review it, that's
and
no
to
problem.
see if anything needs to be changed, increase, decrease.
Right,
save.
to cover our expenses. I'd asked Wayne about that when I
Yeah,
first
'cause
came on.
actually, yeah, the department's supposed to fund itself, and it hasn't been.
All right, so maybe that's something we needed to adjust to bring it back into,
Times change too, so.
right. I can talk to Wayne about that, I'm sure.
Along the same vein is our zoning officer. It's a brand-new position, zoning officer and code enforcement. The OE dropped dramatically from 27,000 to 5,000 because there was a professional paid to provide that service, and that was not paid as a salary and wage. It was paid as a professional operational expense. Our utilities, electric, street lighting, telephone, natural gas, gasoline, diesel, all that is only $1,000 more than it was last year. It is a huge appropriation, but you're really limited as to, there's only so many sources for electricity. Another relatively new line item that we have is the compensated absence liability. When someone retires and they have a large payout for sick, vacation, and or personal time, whatever is reflective of the contractual agreement, then there could be a relatively large payment the township would have to provide to that employee. What the compensated absence liability appropriation does is it slowly funds a, in this case, $10,000 a year to set aside for when someone does retire, the funding will be there. This is a very small amount compared to the actual liability that we do have, but we're just getting started on creating that fund, so that'll continue to improve. The next section is all of our deficits that I did mention briefly, as in the animal trust, the public defender. We have $21,000 in construction. All those items there are deferred charges. The over expenditure that you see for almost 100 was for our red light. That hopefully won't occur again because we're appropriately budgeting for it.
Correct amount, yeah.
So that does create a tax, an extra drain on the 2014 budget, because not only are we budgeting appropriately for 2014, but we're also making up for what we under budgeted last year. So that's a one-time expense that should not be recurring. We have our statutory expenditures, the township's contribution towards the public employees retirement system and the police and fire retirement system, also the employment taxes associated with being employer. We have several grants. All of them in the budget are specifically for the police, and they offset the police salaries and wages. Capital, we did have a large change from our last set of budget documents. Some of the funding, a large portion of the funding was reinstated for our improvements to roads. We had originally cut $50,000 out of that, and when we met Friday, it was determined that that amount would be a detriment to the services that the township is able to provide, so the funding was reinstated for that.
Basically, the roads were pretty chewed up this winter.
The rough winter really leads to a lot of
Mhm.
issues. I think some of the roads, it was commented, that had been repaired last year were back to their pre-repair state, so some roads are going to be repaired twice in 2 years. The other funding that exists in here, the only new appropriation is the first appropriation for our payment for the fire truck. I just wanted to point out that that's only half a year since the funding was just created. Next year, that appropriation should double from 40 to about 80. a little bit less than 80.
Did you hear that they expect to take, get the truck in August?
Oh, great.
So, something, they're going to be going out, I think, this month, I don't think it's this, to check, like it's the first checking on the specs and making sure that everything's okay, but that they expect to take it in August.
Oh, that's great. Did you want to comment on any of the other capital appropriations? The mower or anything else? We have the same debt appropriations pretty much as we had in prior years for the one large bond issuance, including an interest payment. We have what's called special emergency deferred charges. We are currently funding an ordinance that allowed for a labor dispute, I believe is the term, and we only have one more year after this year, 2015, that will be paid in full. We have a small amount set aside for judgments, a large appropriation for reserve for uncollected taxes. That's a non-spending appropriation. It acts like an allowance for doubtful accounts. And what that does is it enables or forces the township to charge, in this case, $660,000 more than what we really need to make up for those taxpayers that are that do not pay their property taxes.
We should point out too that that refunding bond is not reflected in 2014 yet for the
Right.
big Phillipsburg Mall tax appeal. So in 2015, we're going to have what is about $180,000 more expenditures in 2015 and the next 6 years.
Following, yes.
Yeah, that's very good.
Our total appropriations at this point are right around $6.5 million. In 2013, they were $6.33 million. That's roughly $176,000. I think I mentioned before that $110,000 of that is red light, $40,000 is insurance, and the remaining $26,000 is just a variety of increases over a lot of different departments.
So I think, all things considered, I'd rather be here than where we were about a month ago. I think you, Frank, and Dave did an excellent job on this, and I think we still need to just fine-tune a couple small things in this, but other than that, we're probably prepared to introduce in April. Is that a fair assessment? Okay.
You're all comfortable, everything is.
I think we'll have to review also with our auditor where we're at too.
Yeah.
Because he may or may not be comfortable with us using that much
Surplus.
So we may have to increase the budget by 2%, which isn't the end of the world if it's $35 a year for an average person.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that. That's definitely something to keep in mind. Because once you lose that year, you lose that opportunity to levy that money.
Right.
So.
If you adjust the budget, you both adjust his and not mine. We don't have that done.
All right, so I think with that being said, I think we can start the meeting. So adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Express Times and Star Gazette satisfying the Open Public Meeting Act. If we could please stand for a silent prayer and flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do I have a motion to pay the bills presented in proper form, signed by the director of each department and approved by the majority of the members listed on the bills list of March 4th and March 18th?
Mine are done.
Mine are done.
I have one here, Deacon.
Then, Sal, you can hold that one. Whatever one.
All right, then I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Okay, Becker,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Dan Lewis,
Yes.
Angeli,
Yes.
and Kern.
Yes. Okay, public comment pertaining to agenda items. This is public comment on agenda items. Just to clarify, there will be a separate public comment on the ordinance, but if there's any general public comment, please come forward and speak. If there's any general public comment on agenda items. Seeing none, we will move on to the attorney's report.
Actually, you want to do this bid opening?
I did it.
Oh, we did.
It's done. It's awarded upon your review.
Okay. Well, as far as the bid opening for lawn mowing, total lawn care, I think, Wanda, this is who was once last year, right? This is the same.
Yeah, it's
contract.
5 years.
You just have to look it
Yeah,
over.
I have reviewed it because we keep this proposal very simple, so their documentation is in order, so that bid
There we go.
is the lowest responsible bid, and
Wanda, you had the form contract, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's taken care of. Just a couple of things. There was a large 50-page decision from the Health Division, of which we were a party. You probably forgot, but you may recall Tilcon had sued us, along with the Morris County Co-op and everybody who was a member, for asphalt surcharges. The long and short of the 50-page opinion is that the townships won and Tilcon lost on a procedural point, really. The Health Division felt that the Tilcon had a good argument, but that they didn't preserve it because they didn't object as the townships were ordering the asphalt. So it was a rather interesting opinion. Very long if anybody wants to read it. But there's no extra money being required by the township, nor did we spend a lot in that litigation. No, we won't get any back. And we basically did a bunch of just Me Too letter briefs, just letting the co-op run with it. So that was a positive. Mayor, you actually circulated, I think, a copy of the latest order from the New Jersey Supreme Court, which seems to have given
Another
unlimited extension to the Council on Affordable Housing with respect to promulgating new rules. So there is no third round obligation at this point until they figure that out. That's just an ongoing saga. On Quaker Steak and Lube, Gwen and I have been going back and forth with Walmart. At this point in time, and it's in the Quaker Steak and Lube context to the point where, if you recall, the county has been refusing to give them an approval, the county planning board. And one of the reasons for that is that they haven't provided road dedication deeds for the county's extension of Greenwood Street, Bliss Boulevard, as-built plans, a couple other things. So Gwen and I have been working on the Bliss Boulevard aspect of it. I think Gwen just approved finally the last tweaks to the actual description of the Bliss Boulevard right-of-way. So that deed is now finally being circulated to the multiple parties that need to sign it. And then once we have that deed, I'll prepare a resolution to accept the deed, subject to Gwen needs to conduct a final inspection, and we'll be requiring them to post a maintenance bond. So that road is finally wrapping up. It's been a long time, but that's okay. That should assist the Quaker State project because I believe at the same time they're in the process of finalizing the county's road dedication deed. In fact, I think they're going to hold both deeds together and record them together for whatever reason. So some of those obstacles to the Quaker State project, or maybe all of them, will be addressed. In the meantime, I think the National Realty sued the county. I'm not sure where that stands. There's no order to show cause.
Okay.
We'll see what happens, but we've done everything we can as a township to facilitate that restaurant project. I think Gwen probably in her report, we've also had some back and forth dialogue about sewer allocation. Gwen, I'm sure will address that, but she and I agree that there's adequate allocation already there for that project based upon actual flows. So I think we can take action on that probably tonight. We'll wait for Gwen on that. I did circulate the generator ordinance down to Chairman Gardner. I think it's probably a good idea to regulate not portable generators, but the larger whole house generators. I think our zoning officer recommended that. It seems to make some sense, but I think that would really be an accessory structure amendment to the land use ordinances. So I've deferred jurisdictionally to John and let that come up.
And then we'll, that makes sense.
If we get it up here, we have to send it to them.
It's an extra step, yeah.
So I think that makes sense. So that's out. I did give you guys a brief overview of the bond referendum law as it relates to Falkner Townships, but I guess we can get in that more in the discussion of the ordinance. Beyond that, I don't think I have a lot more tonight.
All right.
Other than executive session for litigation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Gwen.
Okay, yeah, going to the Quaker Steak and Lube and their sewer issues. When the project was originally approved, they had anticipated and applied for sewer allocation a total of 30,733 gallons per day for the new Walmart Supercenter and all the out parcels, which are White Castle, Wawa, and it was supposed to be a Longhorn Steakhouse. The restaurant had 188 seats that was in the that was proposed at that time, and when NJDEP regulates sewage flow, and for different uses, it's based upon different things, and for restaurants, it's based on the number of seats in the restaurant. So the bigger the restaurant, the more anticipated sewage flow, which makes sense. Well, Longhorn pulled out, and now Quaker Steak and Lube is going in and increasing it from 188 seats to 295 seats. So that would tend to, you would think that their sewer needs would be greater. Since that time, like I said, DEP is the one who establishes the rates. For retail uses, they've always used a number of 0.1 gallons per day per square foot of floor area. They have since reduced that for stores such as a Walmart Supercenter. And it's down to actually 0.057 gallons per day, so it's a significant reduction. So they're looking at now, if you use DEP's reduced number for Walmart, plus they've provided some actual water usage information from Aqua, their need, even with the increased restaurant, has decreased by 6,860 gallons per day. So it would be up to council to determine if they're willing to accept NJDEP's reduced flow rate and not require them to get additional sewer allocation and pay for it, or just allow them to go forward with the numbers that were originally projected and that they had paid for, knowing that the usage is less.
Well, if it's there, I mean, what?
I would recommend that we just let them do it.
Yeah.
My only issue with that, though, I think, is if council agrees with that, is that you make it conditioned upon that Quaker Steak is responsible to pay any connection fees that Phillipsburg might impose.
Yes.
Now, I've talked to Phillipsburg's engineer about it a little bit, and he is in agreement that they probably would, that Phillipsburg would probably agree, like we do, that they don't need to pay anything else, but that hasn't been brought to their council yet. So I want to make sure that we aren't stuck with that bill.
Well, I think we've been pretty careful to make all, in recent years, Gwen, right, we're sending everybody to P-Berg to make sure they pay both us and them. So
Yes.
we've been pretty good. And I concur with Gwen, I concur with the I see no reason not to go with the revised DEP regulations, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, the excess capacity that you know, I feel reverts back to the township at that point could possibly be used at the business park or somewhere. So at the end, I think it's a win-win. So I think we should approve their sewer application as submitted. Do we need a motion on that, I guess?
They actually, it's just to, really, you're saying that they don't need to apply.
Okay.
There's no
Oh.
application.
Okay. Motion not to approve.
Except the information that they provided.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
And the only other thing I have is just the River Road Bridge. If anybody travels River Road, you know that we haven't started the work on that, and we're just kind of waiting for the snow to be gone and things to dry out a little bit, and so that'll probably be starting up in another month or two.
And I think in hindsight, with this winter, that was a good call not to, so not to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
All right, great. Thank you, Gwen.
Put that in the motion, Jim. I'll just write it down in that motion.
We don't have to make a motion.
Oh, you don't want a
No.
motion to
Well,
waive the application for the Quaker State?
yeah, that would probably be a good way to do it, and then conditioned upon
We'll just
that they're responsible for any fees that are due.
We should formalize that in motion.
Okay. So we'll put that on with motion. Put it on with the regular motion, so we'll just do a lump. Okay. All right, Frank.
I think I took enough time on the budget. I don't think there's a lot else. We didn't meet with the Historic Commission since our last meeting a couple weeks ago. So I think I'm done.
Great. Dave?
For the DPW, the only thing I'll mention again is that we did meet with Frank and Lorraine, Donnie and Jeff. We sat down and went over our budget. tweaked it here and tweaked it there, made it so we could keep some money where we needed money on road maintenance, budgeted some capital improvements for some equipment. I think it really went well, and I'd like to thank Frank and Lorraine for taking the time to sit with us and go over it. Other than that, there's not a whole lot new with the road department. Everybody's kind of getting a little bit of a breather after all the snow. I know they've gone around and checked some of the catch basins and the storm sewers, getting ready for the rest of the thaw and potential rains that's coming. That's about it for the DPW. Last night we had our environmental commission meeting. I think it went very well. It was quite long. A lot of discussion on how to add some wording to our current weed ordinance to cover some invasives. I think we're pretty much almost to the end of that discussion, and we'll have something ready to give to council probably after the next meeting. And then there's also a lot of discussion on the community gardens that we're trying to establish. It's been determined after some discussion that we'd like to try to use the Shimer School site. There's a vacant portion there that we're going to try to utilize as soon as things dry out. I know there's going to be a press release on that. I don't know if you've gotten it yet, Mayor, or not. You were there last night.
Yeah. Not yet, but we're very soon, yeah.
Right. Other than that, that was about it for the Environmental Commission. That's about all I have, man.
Just to piggyback, I went to the Environmental Commission meeting, and it was very well run and a lot of good thought at that meeting. So if council has an opportunity to go, it was the chairman and a lot of the members and Sharon, they had a great discussion last night, and it was very good to see people energized and doing good for the community. So I was very encouraged by that.
Try to work together, Mary.
Yeah, it was very good.
It helps.
All right, Mary.
All right, you already know about the fire truck. And the police report, they had 450 calls for service. The department issued 251 summonses, and they made 24 arrests. And then your CI unit opened 20 new cases. Two things that are of interest to the public is that the police department was selected to participate in the first ever distracted driving campaign. The department secured a grant for $5,000 for additional patrols to combat distracted driving. And I assume by distracted driving, are we putting on makeup, or are we talking on our phones?
And makeup and,
Anything
playing with the
that's
radio,
distracted.
shaving.
Or drinking coffee. The initiative will take place from April 1st to April 21st. And so the campaign details for it will be posted on their Facebook page. So you might want to go to the police department's Facebook page to see the details. Also, the police department secured a grant for the state's annual Click It or Ticket campaign. So, seatbelts, you're supposed to be wearing them, but a lot of people in the public don't. And sadly, 1 in 5 Americans will fail to regularly wear their seatbelt and when driving or riding in a motor vehicle. And so by maintaining the Click It or Ticket brand and awareness, hopefully we'll reduce the seatbelt fatalities on America's roads. Now, this year the campaign will take place from May 19th to June 1st of 2014. And last but not least, the police with other groups are in the process of putting together the annual Easter egg hunt. So they're going to co-sponsor it with the fire department and also the ladies auxiliary. So the tentative date at this point is Saturday, April 5th at the Pocahontas School. And so if you have children, it's for ages.
What are the ages?
Like little
I got-
They're like 2 to 8 or something like that.
Okay.
It'll be online.
Yeah, we'll put
It'll be
it
online.
And it'll be on
online.
your Facebook page too.
Yeah, it'll be online.
And last but not least, I will be out of the country from March 24th, and I will return on April 5th. So just for your information, I do have my phone set up for international calling, but I hopefully won't be called unless it's an emergency.
I don't think you're calling back.
It's ages 1 to 10. Ages 1 to 10.
All right, and that is mine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mary. Actually, Chief, while we're on the distracted driving, what, can you just explain this I'm just curious how is it going to be like a setup point where you guys are?
It's just going to be extra patrols
Okay.
that will go out, and drive around and look for people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing, basically. We've all seen it. The state is actually giving us a grant for us to go out and do these extra patrols. So, most of the departments didn't get it, and our department was selected, to go out and do this. So, we'll go out and we'll see, what's going on. We'll have extra patrols out there looking for people who are doing things such as shaving and,
I was
reading
gonna
maps
say,
and.
will it just be like visual, or when you see a vehicle where they're doing something, we'll use our camera things that do the plate?
No, it'd be visual. If we do have violations, obviously with the license plate reader, then, that'll be handled also.
Oh, no, I meant to use a license plate reader for somebody who's in violation of this.
No, it's just if the officers see something, then obviously they're going to be stopped and ticketed or given a warning.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, Sal.
With the new zoning officer, we're working on 13 properties. I don't see any money in the budget. How are we going to clean them up?
Maybe like when we have somebody come in and cut the grass, that kind of thing?
That kind of a thing, and take a look down there in Finesville. We have about 4 homes that are in deplorable condition. The worst I ever saw. And we have to clean them up.
Do we have the ability to, I'm sure we have the ability to put a lien on the property if we clean it up.
Yeah, usually when we take somebody, that's what
Yeah, the trouble is, I think Sal's point is that we have to pay for it first and then get.
Put it out,
back
yeah.
Later,
Yeah, well,
but it may be worth it.
initially, I think, especially since we now do have a new zoning officer, more activity. I didn't say that.
He was.
I think I think maybe, Sal and the zoning officer work with me. I can help them draft initially, first a letter notice, and that will be followed up if it's ignored with a summons to municipal court.
Yeah,
Get
that's
down
an
to
idea.
municipal court, there can be a fine, but more generally, it's not really the fine we're after. Traditionally, our municipal court judge will give them a window of opportunity to clean up. So it kind of sends a message, if there's a message that will soak through. At that point, if that's ignored, then we can go forward with the municipal lien process, but that will be the last resort, so hopefully we won't get to the point of expending township monies.
Well, that's true, but if it's a home that has been vacated and left to the bank,
Well, that's a different situation.
then I was going to say, then the bank really,
Well, they're
there's
not,
no
yeah.
reason not to.
Those-
So
yeah, those-
would we clean it up and then bill the bank?
Well, those, I think, actually, if you have a bank-owned property, they traditionally farmed out to management companies, and those, if we can, again, they might need help in my office a little bit, but I can help our zoning officer track down who should be getting that notice, because you're right, it will not be the owner of record on our tax, in our tax records, but I can usually track that down, because typically there's some type of a host pendens or something filed in conjunction with a foreclosure, so I can get that information to them, and usually when you get them on notice, they will actually respond, the commercial entities that run them, so. Yeah, the problem is that they have so many properties that they simply don't pay attention to them all, so we can help them on both ends. Yeah. So
I would say,
I don't know which properties you're talking about. Are any of them bank-owned?
Not the ones she's.
Worst is puppies.
Well, who knows?
Oh. I'll tell you what, it's bad. And he wins a prize.
And it's not bank-owned.
No, it's not bank-owned.
Well, can we just start doing what Kevin is suggesting and start the process, and then by the time we get halfway through the process, we'll have an idea of what kind of money we have to put up and what kind of money we can expect back from the liens and the timing.
Okay,
I think he was
the
already.
rain spouts on the building, Deegan put in a bid and he did the job. But I wanted all new rain spouts. That's what the bid states.
Okay.
He did about 3/4 of it. And we're paying the same amount of money.
All right, well, we can talk to Deegan about
Okay.
it. Yep.
How about an environmental study of the building? The mold problem here at the building.
That was finalized, and that's been circulated to both our architect, and the architect has sent that to TCI. There's a meeting, I think it's been set, Mayor, if I understand it. It's a no-return meeting simply between our architect, the contractor, and a subcommittee. I think you're going, Mayor, and somebody else. That is on the punch list, Sal, that environmental report. So most of that work is going to be, cleanup work and remediation will be down in the police department area, actually. The upstairs areas, I think the report basically recommends further follow-up as we get into the hotter, warmer weather and we know where the moisture's coming from. So, but it is on the punch list agenda for this upcoming meeting.
Okay, Wendy's, I want you to reconsider her wages because she gets a lot of phone calls at home, Frank. And people come to her home, and she does a lot of extra work. I want you to take that into consideration. Wendy saved the day when she came here. We were in a heap of trouble. Well, I tell you, we're working on 13 properties right now, and we're going ahead with having them brought into court, and then we will arrest them. I'll have to go over this here budget. Jeff, what about those two vehicles?
The ones where Rustic Acres?
Rustic Acres.
They're, one of the officers has been in touch. They are going to get them out of there. It's just a matter of they're waiting for the snow to go away, and it's being taken care of.
One's going to be in use, and the other one, he's actually going to keep. One just doesn't run. Couldn't get out of there with all the service, he understood. The other one, he is getting taken care of all the paperwork.
Okay, I hope it's this year and not next. Okay, that's all I have right now.
All right, thank you.
And Sal, I just wanted to clarify, in terms of the mold issue, just for the benefit of the public, I mean, the report was essentially pretty good in terms of mold. There isn't any mold above normal limits in the air or anything else in the building. So for all you people out there tonight, don't be worried that you're going to go home with suddenly start sneezing. So there are some cleanup issues that we need to address downstairs in the police department. The more, just those types of items. But I just wanted to make that clear for you people out there that we're not breeding mold. But the report overall was fairly good.
All right, thank you for clarifying that, Kevin. The only thing I just want to comment on is we have a resolution calling on the legislature to make permanent the 2% cap interest on arbitration awards. I received a memo from the League of Municipalities for us to support this. Obviously, just going through the budget, if we are forced to be within a 2% cap, if a arbitration is awarded over 2%, then that hurts the township. And these are set to expire on April 1st. So it is our hope that the legislature will act and pass this. I don't know what the delay is, but I'm pretty sure every town in New Jersey is very nervous as this is happening. I mean, we have a pending negotiation right now, so I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where you have to pay a 7% increase when you can only raise the tax levy 2%. So it's not sustainable, and I just hope that we pass that resolution this evening. That's all I have.
Is there anything from the land use board? Report-wise?
Not to, not,
They're gonna look over the generator.
yeah, the last meeting there was an informal, and the Starbucks will be on the next meeting.
How about, I guess it's 4 meetings now where there has been no public comment. Is that going to get addressed sooner or later? I mean, I think it's wonderful that everybody's here tonight. It's a democracy in action, I think, when the public can be heard. And I'm disappointed that public comments aren't allowed in the land use board as well.
You want to handle it, Mayor, or you want me to?
Well, I mean, it's not our meeting. We don't set the agenda, so, but I know we're in the process of working on bylaws for those meetings.
I mean, the public's still going to be able to comment, am I right, Mayor, on agenda items if they're, directly related to a variance or an applicant, correct? Am I right in saying that? So there still will be public comment on agenda and variance type items. It's just not a general public comment on the meeting itself, is what my understanding was.
No, they're building as we speak. I mean, yeah.
I've had people asking me
Yeah.
I'm in favor of more public comment rather than limited public comment.
I said the meetings are going to be open for, public comment pertaining to agenda items or applicants, variances, anything that's before the board.
Well, what if somebody wants to be on the agenda?
We actually are still, let me speak, Frank. We are still going to have informals. If somebody has a question, we discussed this last night, the first route, I guess, would be to the zoning officer. Question the zoning officer. If the zoning officer's not sure, he's going to refer it to the land use board as an informal. Mr. Haney came the other meeting, and that was an informal he came as because he had questions. And he came before the board, they figured out what he had to do because he had, questions, and it was addressed, and he has to make, the proper applications for what he needs to do. So it's not that there will be no public comment, but it's going to be public comment pertaining to things on the agenda or variances or, people that are there seeking relief, not just general public comment. And our bylaws, as the mayor had said, are being reviewed. And when we're done with them, I'm sure we'll publish them or put them out there for everybody to read. And the thing is, I think the meetings have deviated from what these original bylaws had been, in place. They kind of wandered off track a little bit. We're trying to rein the meetings back in a little bit. Chairman Gardner, you want to speak to this at all or not?
We voted unanimously for the land use board. My board members were afraid to speak. They thought that.
I mean, we're all volunteers up here.
We're volunteers. Nobody's getting paid at all. Put a lot of time in and a lot of complicated issues. Everybody can recall for the last, 20 years, I guess. I've been organized 20 years. We never had this level of vitriol in public comment and stuff. So what I did was the members wouldn't speak. I've never. 20 years ago, I guess, when I started being chairman, I think it's there was a lot of discussion. And when I came back as chairman a year or so ago, there was no discussion. And when I talked to the board members, the idea was they were afraid that, the audience would just kind of tear them apart. So to do the business in the township, people need to feel comfortable doing what they do. This is we're not land use professionals. We don't represent the law of the people. We represent the people for the law of land use. So our goal is to be as fair as we possibly can. That's going to require us to have discussion and think about it and ask our lawyer questions. They weren't doing it, so we kind of temporarily suspended that. The part that we must and will continue to is variances and people, that have direct involvement with various applications that we get. We never change that. We can't change that. And we wouldn't. We want to. But general public comment, Mark added that. When was that?
Probably about 4 years ago.
It had never been part of our
I
program.
actually changed the agenda to read public comments on non-agenda items, with the idea being that if there was some other planning issue that somebody in the audience wanted to discuss, we'd be willing to hear it. It became, it got out of hand. It's the bottom line. Every meeting became a referendum on somebody's personal political agenda on something like that, and it got to the point where the members of the board were in terror of opening their mouths and in some cases even making decisions for fear not everybody is willing to deal with the threats and the damage to property and that sort of thing. Some of us on the board have endured for years, while the land use board members weren't willing to do that. So we had to take away that whole part of the agenda, and take away that threat, keep it strictly the land use issues on the agenda for those applications on that evening.
And I spoke with, actually, I had spoken with Lynn Arrow about this issue, and I think, Lynn was concerned, and, he contacted me as a township attorney, and I think what you're hearing from the board, and I think in my experience in 25 or 30 years, again, I'm getting old here, but a lot of land use boards have represented, and I've presented applications to many boards for many private clients over the years. And frankly, I don't recall another land use board that had a general public comment section, and I think the reason for that is, and I think where Attorney Arrow was going, and where I think what you're hearing is that really the land use board is a board of limited jurisdiction. They only hear land use issues. So I think in a way, the flip side of not having it really, to a certain extent, does a disservice to the community, because really the public comments should be to this council, to the board of general jurisdiction that can do things about them. So, statutorily, the land use board only has jurisdiction over minor subdivisions and major subdivisions and site plans and things like that. I would think that if somebody writes a letter to the board, about a planning item, it can probably be addressed under correspondence. It's not that there can't be expansions of their agenda, but I do, I did share Lynn Arrow's concern as the board attorney that you don't want to turn the land use board into a quasi-township council.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really the concern. It's not to shut up the public at all. It's just to have the public valid comments come to the board that can actually adjudicate and hear them, which would be here. So, and I agree with Councilman Becker. It's good to see a lot of people here, but it really should be here, most of that kind of thing. So, I think the board and the council have always worked well together. The generator ordinance is a classic example of that. And I've always worked well with Lynn Arrow, and of course, Gene Weber's been there forever. So I hope and expect to have a good relationship going forward with the board. So hopefully it'll work out.
Thank you,
I
Kevin.
guess you probably haven't had the experience of being shut down after 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been down there recently, but I think that was a concern in terms of general public comment. That's all I was addressing, not the procedures of the government.
Is there,
Continue with the
yeah,
Take them both?
yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
I'll move them. One is the calling on the legislature to make permanent the 2% capital interest arbitration award, and the other one would be the addition to the 2014 capital.
Yes.
So moved.
I think he seconds it.
I'll second it.
Becker?
Yes.
Slack?
Yes.
Van Loop? Yes. Angeli?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes. Okay, there are no first reading of ordinances, but there is a second reading.
We open up this ordinance to public comment.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay, does anyone have any public comment on 14-3? Sir, if you just step up, sign in, speak into the microphone. Yeah, and just verbally identify yourself, folks, when you speak.
Do you prefer that I sit at the microphone?
Whatever you're more comfortable.
Good evening, Michael Newman, River Road. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This day has been a long time coming. Shortly after my family moved to Carpenterville nearly 25 years ago, we learned of plans for a 1,600-unit mega housing development slated for Oberley Road, Carpentersville Road, and High Street that would have more than doubled the population of Powhatan. It was a terribly planned project being pushed through under the pretext of providing affordable housing. It would have destroyed over 700 acres of the best farmland in the state in the Powhatan and Alpha grasslands, which is critical habitat for many grassland bird species and raptors that are threatened and endangered in New Jersey. I see here tonight many of the people who were among the residents who stood up to say no to Riverwalk. Sal Vangeli was mayor at the time, and he was initially a lone voice in Powhatan government calling out to find a way to stop the madness. Phillipsburg Riverview Organization, a citizens group, hired Pete Buxbaum, one of the state's top attorneys in affordable housing and land use. With the support of residents and organizations like PRO and the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, a decade later, we were able to defeat Core States Bank and their $1 billion in assets. Riverwalk was no more. And in fact, I believe it was Mary Van Loo who cast the first vote to say no to Riverwalk, the first official vote. The land became farmland forever and the grasslands bird sanctuary. What remained of the development plan was the 160-acre tract along High Street and Carpentersville Road that started as RDS and eventually was owned by EAI Investments. That piece had been slated for nearly 600 homes. Eco-Action Initiatives of Warren County presented a strong case to NJDEP why that development should not be included in the sewer service area. DEP ruled against EAI and the project was scaled back to just over 200 units. EAI is now going belly up. The property is for sale by the bank, and here we are today, 25 years later, ready to put the finishing touch on a farmland preservation and conservation effort that is the envy of communities all across the state. Mayor, thank you for having the courage to call for action when it needs to be taken. Council, thank you for showing your support and for passing the amendment tonight that will ultimately save countless millions of dollars for Powhatan taxpayers for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment.
My name is Laura Altman. I also am a resident of River Road and married to Michael, and then many people know of our long involvement in the fight against these co-developments. I think the unfairness to this community of these builder's remedy projects was just enormous and overwhelming. The idea that what is basically an affordable community would be swamped by luxury housing to provide a teeny tiny handful of quote-unquote affordable housing was just monstrously unfair. I think we now finally have the opportunity to get that property out of the hands of developers and also fulfill our co-obligation in another way besides an inclusionary development. Even when the property was not going to be all 1,500, but maybe 500 houses, the tax deficit that the developers calculated was 1.4 million annually. So any kind of dense residential development tends to generate a tax deficit. So even if you have to buy it with some money that, you know, is taxpayer money, in the long run, I truly believe everybody, when they look at fiscal impacts of these things, finds that you don't make money on residential development. So if you buy this now, it puts an end to that possibility. But I don't think that it means that the township loses a ton of money just on the purchase, because you can, of course, sell the development rights to the state or county and then sell the property to a farmer. So you can end up practically making money. I'm not going to say for sure, but I mean, there are ways to do it where it doesn't cost millions of dollars just to the taxpayers of Pohatcong Township. So I strongly, strongly support this effort to finally kill this thing and then also finally settle our co-obligation so that we're not faced with another one, you know, in the very near future. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think I'm next. I was the first person in this room tonight. No, I was the second, Mr. Vangelli.
You just say your name, sir.
Okay, I don't need a microphone. I got a loud mouth, but I'm doing it here. My name is William Shepard, and I live at 412 Maple Avenue in Pohatcong Township. I was a member of the Pohatcong Planning Board back in the 70s and a member of the Pohatcong Township Heritage Commission that wrote the history of Pohatcong in the book Pohatcong, the Prologue. I'm here tonight to ask our mayor and council to approve an exception and to amend the bond ordinance referendum with respect to the acquisition of property for open space, recreation, historic preservation, and farmland preservation, to allow the opportunity to purchase the EAI property at the corner of High Street and Cartnersville Road. This is a great opportunity to rid our community of a negative dark cloud that's been hanging over our heads for a long time. Many of us residents have lost a lot of sleep because of the threat of development by EAI on that property. A development that should never happen for a lot of legitimate reasons and a negative effect that it would have had on our community. You know the saying, you snooze, you lose. Don't let that happen here. The original ordinance was well intended, but we can't afford to wait until June for a vote. I lived in Pohatcong Township for over 70 years, and my family has been here for 180 years. I know the pulse of this community, and I know what makes this community tick. Tonight, all of you have an opportunity to do something special for the taxpayers and residents of our community. I'm asking our mayor and our council to please pass the exception to the ordinance and, if possible, acquire the EAI property. If you make this happen, our community, young and old alike, will be eternally grateful to all of you.
Thank you. Other public, yes, sir.
Kurt Weiss, Mountain Road. Just two other quick things. It's with the budget and the Historic Commission. I also just wanted to mention that we've gotten some grants in the past for the township. We've got another one this year. So it's a lot of hard work by particularly Mike Margulies on our board, but I just want to put that out there that, you know, there's definitely a contribution besides what else we're trying to, our other projects. Also, just because I have kids, I've had kids in this township and continue to have kids in the township, I'm probably speaking a slightly out of turn for our commission, but if there's something that needs to be reduced from our commission to go to the rec board, or rec, I think it's, I think the rec's really important. I think our kids are important. I think we need to make sure that we support that as best we can.
Thank you. It's okay. It's okay.
As far as the bond referendum, I never really was in favor of it to begin with. I think that we,
elect our members to, or our council members to steer our township. I think that it hamstrings you at a certain point, and maybe this was one of them. There might be others. So I was never really in favor to begin with. That being said, I think this opportunity is truly an opportunity to take care of some of our COLA obligations, to be really leading in this state as far as our zoning, our planning, and our COLA obligations, if we handle this properly. So I'm 100% for it, and hope you pass it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I'm Robert Fry, Snyder's Road. I can't help but point out it's a bit hypocritical to change a bond ordinance referendum so quickly, but I think it's absolutely necessary, and I'm all in favor of it. And I appreciate what you have done, and I trust that perhaps that land can be preserved and be made available for agriculture, so that if you want to keep the rural community, it has to be land to be farmed by the next generation. I thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, folks. Mark Metzger. Thank you for having me back. Honestly, I disagreed with the original ordinance, the way it was written. I expressed my opinion to you guys at the time, and it wasn't that I disliked the principle. It was that I had serious concerns about the execution, the feasibility to execute it in a way that would make sense for the township when there were timing issues. Preserving land, reducing large growth along with the associated infrastructure costs ultimately saves the taxpayers money. I don't think there's any way to argue that. If you just look at the numbers, additional housing equals more kids. Currently, right now, I think the Pohat School is somewhere around $12,000 a kid. High school in the next 2 years is going to go up to $16,000 per kid. The average taxpayer is paying somewhere around $7,500 to $8,000 a year. Half goes to the school. Do the math. It's just a killer for all that. Unfortunately, there is no economy of scale in the school system. Not sure why. Unfortunately, there's nobody in this room that can change that. I do want to say that I'm not opposed to growth. However, just so everybody is aware, there's still lots in this town available to be built on an infill basis. This is not the end of residential growth in this town. We just don't need to do all of it at once. And I often, Mayor, have disagreed with you and some others on the board, but I have to tell you, in this case here, you have my full support, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you. I'm here tonight as a Board of Trustee members of the Phillipsburg Riverview Organization. As Mr. Newman had so eloquently put, the concern of the area residents for the native species in the grassland can tremendously be improved by the saving the environment that the PRO organization has been fully behind. And as council and members of the public knows, that PRO does own the piece of property that the Riverwalk land that was once slated for development, and they continually maintain that with the DEP with native grasses and different species. I would recommend people to go and visit the property and take a look at the birds and everything that utilize it. But we're looking really forward to seeing what will happen with the EAI property. As soon as we heard about this situation, we actually found some resources to possibly find some funding sources if this council doesn't come up with enough money for the council's purchases. So the council can contact me, and we're going to have a meeting this Saturday if you have any concerns. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Councilwoman. Louis Cartabona. Thank you. Yeah, and since we're going to be having a board meeting this coming week, if you have any concerns you want to share with PRO and what we might be able to assist you with, we'll be very happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment pertaining to this? Yes.
Jerry Kern. I've been here for over 30 years, so I'm fully aware of Riverwalk. I was actually against it because it was too large. It wasn't smart growth. Since that time, my taxes have gone from $1,400 when I moved in here to over almost $7,000. And I was told if we have a big development like that, my taxes would go through the roof. In the 30 years I've been here, we have had no development in Powhatan. My taxes have gone through the roof. We are paying, I'm paying I'm the 26th this municipality in the state of New Jersey for highest taxes. It's just in the paper 2 weeks ago. So the fallacy that if we build, the taxes are going to go through the roof obviously is not clear or correct. This town has infrastructure in place. We built a school. We don't have, it's not even to capacity. We have very limited potential for any developable land. This is one of two, other than some miscellaneous lots throughout the town. This piece should not be preserved. I would like to ask this council what we're going to do for ratables in this town to maintain a livable tax rate for people in here. Like Sal suggested himself, we have 13 homes in foreclosure. How long do we wait and keep preserving?
I didn't say that.
We have
Let him finish.
homes in despair. Tax people, we're being taxed. You can't keep your home up. This is what happens. There needs to be some growth. Why are we going to give up the last piece that's surrounded by homes on all sides and 78? Has infrastructure for it to be built where all the other areas in town do not have that. It's a big mistake. I'm not suggesting we build 1,600 homes like Riverwalk. Quite frankly, that can't happen again. It's in the Highlands. There was a plan for apartment buildings, high end. It was a great plan. Ratables, one-bedroom apartments, no kids. Not that we couldn't use some kids in this town. I don't understand what people keep saying. You can't preserve everything. You can't do it and survive as a town. We need ratables. There's insurance keeps going up. People that are working for the town are looking for raises, as everybody likes to get a raise. These costs continue to raise. New trucks cost more money, but we'll never have more people to pay it. So who pays it? The people that are left here. Continued tax increases. We have to start thinking smartly about this. We can't go on the path of preserving everything. It doesn't work. I'm against this, and I would hope everyone votes against it and consider some smart growth there. When we preserve this, we collect no income from taxes at all. It's preserved. The town owns it, we get nothing. We have enough of that property in this township. I think 90% of it's agriculture. The Highlands, and if you want to borrow money, my last comment would be pay the people that this last council that was in place, and Sal, you were on it, that stole my property rights and haven't yet paid me for it. If you want to borrow money, pay the people that you've already taken their rights from. That would be a good start first before we, and I'd like to also know, is there a cap on this? Or do we spend any amount of money, whatever it may be?
There's no cap.
No cap, whatever. Whatever the going price is, we just pay for it. I mean, supposedly I was told by opting that into the Highlands, we don't have to worry about attorney fees because the Highlands is going to cover it. So I don't know what the scare is, but I would hope that you would look further into this before making a bad move. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Trish Becker, and I live over on Creek Road. I heard the chairman of the Land Use Board tonight say that some of his members are afraid to speak. I'm also afraid to speak, but I'm here anyway, and I'm speaking. I know that there are a lot of people in this room who are going to be against what I say, make fun of me for what I said. It doesn't matter. I'm going to say it anyway. Laura mentioned unfairness to the community. Well, I feel that without taking this to the public for a referendum, that's the biggest unfairness to the community. The mayor was very excited and proud to bring this bond ordinance referendum to the fore. You all voted on it. And now, that this situation came up, well, let's take the easy route to change this bond ordinance referendum. 2 weeks ago at the council meeting, where the mayor didn't attend it, there was the opportunity on the agenda to go out for a referendum. And that really was never heard that night. And I don't really quite understand why, except that this first reading was earlier on the agenda. So they covered that, and they never got to the other thing, or the other thing was really made moot. I heard someone else say tonight that we elect council members, to make decisions for our community. And I would say that 5 people up here should not have the responsibility of spending what could be in excess of $1 million on this property. I believe that we should respect the taxpayers and that we should go out to a referendum for this. And I think there's time to do it. If we work smart and efficiently, we can do that. And I don't have an opinion one way or the other about this EAI property because I don't have any confidence, quite frankly, in the councils, past councils, of spending large amounts of money on behalf of our residents. This municipal building is a perfect example for me of that. The Shimer School is another example of that. And I know these are all different, and I know this is land and it's not a structure. But I feel very strongly, even though it's hard for me to speak to it, that we should be going out to the taxpayers and give them a say and let them decide how they want us to spend this money. And the fact that there's no cap on this spending is disgraceful. And I feel like all that enthusiasm that I saw in our mayor working to get this bond referendum in place, I don't know, some kind of wind blew through and now we're changing this. And I feel it's just it was a fair weather situation that made that ordinance come to be, I guess. And personally, I'm very disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you. John, you got to come up to the,
I have a lot to do with the litigation. They sued us.
John, you have to adjust the board. You have to adjust the board.
They addressed the board. They sued us for $105 million. And we lost. There was I think we spent 5 years in litigation with them. We spent $80,000 a year. They spent $80,000 a month on their intention. They believed they were going to make a fortune, and we knew that for every dollar we spent, we were going to save the township. And this is, and Laura said it, this is our first, only, and best chance to kill this thing. Every dollar that we spend now will save us 100 in the future. We were all involved in this. Sal, you were part of it. Mary, certainly. We were all here. You were on the land use with me at that time. We put a ton of effort into this. It was going to destroy our town. I know it's a complicated calculation, but 700 kids at $10,000 a piece is $7 million. That would be the additional cost of the township. That's one cost of the township. There would be many others. So when you say, well, we get ratables, no, people pay $7,000 a year. So that would be less than half of that. And that's assuming just that many kids. If we could buy this and preserve it, and I think Bob Fry had a good idea, and we talked about this, I talked about it with Dave earlier. We own the land and lease it to somebody for, I guess, a multi-year. 1 year is not enough. Maybe a 5-year, we bid, whatever. We'll keep it the way it has been, the way it should be. This is our last, best chance to save that property and our town at the same time. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? This is, Jack, go ahead, Mr. Cons.
The Mayor Board. First of all, I guess I've been a resident of Placon Township my whole life. And Purcell Hill was a land grant from the King of England, as were the properties that Michael Newman, who moved in here a little bit later on, referred to. And basically, with this situation, first of all, does the council know exactly what the defendant, the plaintiff, the judgment is going to be against the defendant?
It's already a judgment.
Yeah, but that sheriff's sale has been postponed.
There's already been a sheriff's sale on the part of the bank owns half, or one of the tracts.
Yeah, the 50 acres.
The second tract, the sheriff's sale has been done some time. There already is an adjudicated amount of their debt. I'm not sure what it is.
I think that's going to be readjusted to the best of my knowledge.
You can't readjust mortgage debt, right?
Well, that's what's going on. That's what I was told. So I think we better know where we're going before we go there. I think, the best of my knowledge, there's adjustments being made. And the court date hasn't been reset yet. Number one. Number two, who is to say that this property is going to be bought to be developed? What are we worried about?
John.
Who's to say that's what they're going to do with it? I guess my other question would be, is there a chance that maybe to turn this into senior housing for no school-age children? There's a lot of ifs here. I've asked on many occasions how much money we spent since 1988 to fight whatever we're fighting. And now that we win here, it goes away. Where do we go with COA? Do we have other obligations? Do we have other litigation?
Till May.
But how about our first and second round obligations?
There's only so much senior housing you can have. You don't really have a
Yeah.
It's not there. There's no utility.
other types of
So you're saying then that we don't have to meet our round one and round two obligations? We did? Okay.
Does the way this bond is worded allow for use of color? It doesn't say color anywhere in there.
It's not for summer.
No.
I just say as a resident, I've been watching this, my taxes have been doubled. And quite frankly, my father and my uncle and a lot of other people are no longer residents of this township, but they can't afford to live here. And it's great for everybody else. One thing I would recommend is if we're going to go into this just like with recreation, everybody who's a taxpayer pays a flat rate. Not one guy pays more than next. Everybody pays the same. If we're going to preserve this, and it's $2.4 million, it costs us so much every year, everybody pays the same, whatever it is, divided by the citizens. Just like recreation, you pay. You know, we've already lost recreational fields. I was involved with the Schaumburg School, and I got the dirt with Frank Turley to do those recreational fields. Yeah, but now they're solar panels. And who is going to maintain this property? We're going to have another 150 acres. First of all, it's out of the tax base.
It's not going to be out of tax base totally. If it's farmed and we flip it, it's going to have tax revenue generated on it. The same amount that it generates now.
If you flip it.
Right.
Yes. How much are you going to flip it for? How much are you going to pay for it? I think you better decide, you better determine exactly what you're going to have to pay, because the bank, like the first one, they bought the first one back. They postponed this one twice. I have a little bit of information, but it's not public, and I'm not really sure because there's no determination at this point, to the best of my knowledge, as to what that debt is. I think we better know where we're going before we go there. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. No,
yes.
No, it's public.
You can ask me anything.
No, thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Or any other public, no, I want to see if anyone else would like to speak who is not yet spoken. Mrs. Forbes, you are next.
Hi, Judy Forbes, Creek Road. I've been a resident for at least 25 years. I just want to make a comment that if you do vote to go ahead and at least try to buy the property, that you're not negating the previous decision to limit the willy-nilly expenditures of township monies without going to the public. This is just because of the time frame right now, and everyone should understand that you really don't have the time to wait to have a vote and to spend the extra $13,000. I'm totally in favor of doing it, but I just really want to go back to people who are not in favor and who are looking at the decision of the township to not allow to go over a certain ceiling without going to the public. This is a unique situation. Your ordinance to change it is a unique limiting framed ordinance. It's not for anything that comes across that's over the limit that you had agreed to go to the public on. So is that understood? Am I explaining it? I hope everybody in the public understands that. So there's no reason to be disappointed in the council or the mayor. In fact, you should be aware that they are aware of what is going on and what their options and choices are, and that they're trying to make a good decision for the township. The other thing that I have been talking about for probably over 20 years is the aesthetics of preserving the grasslands. Having grown up in the inner city, when I came to Powhatan, at the time I had known about Powhatan because I went to the New Jersey State Police Academy with our former Chief of Police, Garrett. And he told me he lived in the most beautiful township in New Jersey. And I came from Hudson County, which years ago when Mr. Fry's relatives lived there, it was probably one of the most beautiful counties in New Jersey. But Oberly Road and the grasslands reminds me of hiking in Glacier National Park where you go through 50 Mountain Pass. Because when you're up there and you look out on the mountains in Pennsylvania, and then you look at the mountains in New Jersey, and you just do that 100-degree turnaround, it's just totally unique to New Jersey, and it should be preserved just for that. Too bad we don't have some good restaurants in the area. We could advertise in all the New Jersey magazines and say, come out for a great meal, and then take a walk through the grasslands on Oberly Road. Thank you very much.
Right there. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Charles Asbury. I live in Finesville on 627. I'm a pretty young resident here. We've been here 12 years. I wanted to say a few things. I was pleased with the council's taking the position on limiting the amount of money you could spend without coming to the taxpayers, to the residents. I think that's a really strong position in favor of democracy. And I think if at all possible, you ought to do it this time. I haven't heard anybody say yet how long it would take to put together a referendum. I'm hearing a lot of things about it takes until June. I'm not sure that's true. I don't know, but I haven't heard any of you say how long it would take, or any of you say when this sale is expected to take place. There's a sense of urgency here, and it must be because the sale is about to take place any minute, and it's going to take us months to put together a referendum. I've heard finally tonight some words about the relative costs of supporting new residents versus the cost of this. And I was involved back when I first came here and saw the difficulties that we were having getting the builder's remedy into a situation where we could handle it. But I would ask that you not change what you've passed already to give a blanket, open-ended capability for you to spend as much money as you think necessary for any other future thing like this that comes along, but rather limit it to this specific situation if the urgency requires it here, and continue to come to the taxpayers and the residents whenever you can, and in all cases except extreme urgency, and make public comment thoroughly, so that public statements thoroughly, so that we can understand why you might want to make an exception, and be prepared to support you in that situation. So in summary, trust the residents and limit the changes you make to this resolution that you made a year ago or so. Don't gut it immediately here. That would be it.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Does anyone else want to speak before I go to round two? Okay. Oh, okay.
I have a public comment that I was asked.
I have it. Yeah, I have it.
My name is Enrique Hernandez. I'm on River Road. I'm also a bit disappointed that this particular issue cannot go to the voters, but my understanding is that there are, in fact, very serious time constraints, and that the uniqueness of the situation is an opportunity not to be missed. So, although I am in favor of modest, well thought out development, I believe this particular opportunity, as I understand it, the best course of action is for the council to amend the ordinance and attempt to purchase this property so that they can take control of what happens there, rather than having to accept the effects of litigation that have gone on for a long time. That said, I would like to just change the subject for a little while. On the previous.
Is it on, it's only on the bond? Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. That's the end of my comment.
Yeah, well, we'll be able to talk, yeah, after them, yep. Any other public comment pertaining to this ordinance? Okay. You go ahead, one more.
The lady spoke before, she said this was a fair weather decision. I disagree with that. It's the right decision for this community, and we cannot miss this opportunity. I want the council and the mayor to go ahead with this and make it happen. If we can't let a technicality stand in the way of the right thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Are we able to then speak on this before we take action?
It was just the motion to
Close public comment, okay. Okay, is there a motion to close public comment?
I'll second that motion. Oh, you didn't read.
Oh, yeah, okay. I did receive a phone call today from Mr. Pritchard, he's very ill, but he wanted to call me. He left me a very nice voicemail just saying that he supported the amendment to this ordinance and couldn't make it here tonight, but he just wanted to be on the record for saying that. So I told him I would read. Well, I didn't tell him. I didn't get a chance to get back to him, but I will tell him that I read that.
A little background on him.
Many, many years.
And also on the land use board representing them for like facilities.
Yeah. All right, so there's our motion to close public comment.
I seconded it.
Okay. So we need a roll. Wanda, we need a roll. Wanda, we need a roll.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yes. Yes, Sal? Yes, okay, thank you. Okay, Kevin, can you elaborate on your attorney's report? You were going to save that till now.
Well,
About
last month, we have a fairly unique ordinance, the ordinance that we're proposing to amend tonight, we did several months back. Actually, I'm not aware of any other township who has an ordinance like it. But basically, the council voted to go out to referendum for any ordinance where the expenditure is going to exceed $400,000. And it didn't, the ordinance itself was frankly silent about the procedure for the referendum itself if you get to that point. So at the last meeting, I think I indicated to the council I'd have to check that. We had some very preliminary calls to the county clerk as to how this would happen. Do you have to use the formal election process? So I have talked to the township clerk, county clerk today, have researched the statutes, and essentially, Blackhawk Township is what's called a false township. So there are a variety of different forms of governments at the local level that are statutorily authorized in the 30s. Many of those do not have referendum authority. So Blackhawk Township is probably one of the minority townships in the state that's called a false township with a modern charter that does permit referendum. So there are specific statutory guidelines for initiative and referendum. And I think those would have to be followed in the case of a referendum contemplated under our particular local ordinance. So what those statutes require, and just to paraphrase, is that if you have a question that you want to vote by referendum, that has to go out. You can do an ordinance. So in this instance, we do an ordinance to exceed the $400,000 cap in our local ordinance fund code. In this instance, let's say you do a bond ordinance to spend $2 million to buy a particular piece of property, so you're over the cap. That ordinance would have to go to referendum. That referendum can't be less than 40 days from the date of final approval and passage of the special ordinance. So if we started today on the ordinance to exceed our $40,000 cap to buy a piece of equipment or a piece of land or anything, you have to pass that, then we can't go out to referendum for at least 40 days. Also, by statute, that referendum has to to either a general or regular municipal election. In Cohasset Township, we used to have regular municipal elections. We don't have them any longer because the legislature let us move them to the general election cycle, which saves us several $1,000s per election cycle, so we don't have to fix our own regular municipal elections. So we don't have those April, May elections anymore, or in the normal November election cycle. And I have talked to the county clerk. We originally bouncing around the idea of could you maybe get out to a May referendum. Looking at the statutes, neither of us feel that we could do that. The notices for May of our time frames already come and gone. First of all, from my legal standpoint, that election wouldn't qualify. Wouldn't be in 40 days, and that's not a general election. I think it's a school board election. So, from my perspective, I think unless there were a special election for some other issue between June, July, or August, that this referendum would not be able to be put on a ballot until the November general election. So that's what my view is, having more thoroughly analyzed the statutes.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Because I spoke with the county clerk and Pat called 2 weeks ago, and again today, and she took in both responses that in her criteria was 60 days, 5 days, 30 days, something else. That we could probably do it. It'd be tough for May, but we could probably do it for 10 days after this June primary. So it was like June 13th. Is what she told me today.
But that would have to be a special election. We would have to have our own special election. And what I'm saying is, I don't see any provision.
You're not allowed to have a special election?
That's what I'm saying. I don't see anything in the statute that permits you to call your own special election.
Is there anything that prohibits calling a special election?
Well, it requires explicitly that you either have the question on the general election ballot or a regular municipal election, which we no longer have. So
to me, I mean, we passed an ordinance, we should have a mechanism for implementing.
Well, there is a mechanism. There's a question of timing. Now, special election is specifically discussed in the statute, and what I'm saying is, if there were a special election, like the recent one by way of example for our senator, by way of example, that was when we had a senator die in office and the governor called a special election, by way of example. That's a classic case. If there's a special election that's municipal-wide, we could append our referendum question to it. That is specifically contemplated by statute.
Unaware of something that you're aware of?
I don't think Pat and I aren't saying anything inconsistent. In the 60-day time frame, that has to do with the election of officials. So we could accelerate that. The statute for referendum specifically says 40. So we don't have to meet the 60. That's number one. So her notices, and you have to understand, you don't see these often, these types of referendum issues. So Pat is applying. When I spoke with her this afternoon. I think afternoon you spoke with her. Looking at the statutes, it's clear that you would have to comply with the 40-day limit, not any of the other limits. Then in conjunction with that 40-day limit, you have to do certain advertisements. Our own clerk has to actually do that. So the way it seems to me pretty clear, the way you have to do this is you have to adopt a bond ordinance to acquire this CAI tract. You want to put a dollar amount in that. As Jay pointed out, it's not certain what that dollar amount would be. But once you pass that ordinance, then that can be referendum. And at this point, it seems to me, unless it's some special election that I'm not aware of, I think that would.
You can't call a special election just for a referendum?
As far as I can see, no. I've looked at that pretty carefully because it seems a bit odd to me, Frank. I'm happy to further research that, but if you read the statute explicitly, it seems to only let you use the special election format if there's already one called for another purpose. And then there's another prohibition for special elections that you can't do more than one in a 6-month period or something like that. But you think you'd be able to call a special election, but that's not unusual. A lot of your bond, like by way of example, to analogize, well, we're a Faulkner Act township, and we can actually hold binding referendums. Townships that are not Faulkner Act can nevertheless have non-binding questions on the ballot. In other words, you're not bound by what the voters say, but it's kind of to get a poll of their sense of an issue. Those types of non-binding referendum questions are always on general ballots. So, so I'm not surprised totally that the referendum process is a bit hamstrung statutorily, but that seems to be the case. That's about all I can say. That's about all I can give you from a common standpoint. It's not ideal for this situation if you're trying to raise a foreclosure sale. In most instances, you're not there. So, this foreclosure sale, I think at this point it says for sometime in April. I wouldn't think we would probably bid at that sale or anything like that. But the idea would be, I think what we're talking about here, and you are right, Frank, and whoever in the public talks about, this ordinance would basically exclude generically any bond ordinance for open space, farmland preservation, forest preservation, recreational purposes. They would be exempt from the bond, no matter how much you went out for. You could potentially modify the ordinance to put some other caps on those types of ordinances, but that's the way this one is structured. The idea in this particular instance is, although we're not justified the EAI, but the idea of the ordinance is, assuming the bank acquires the property at sheriff's sale, which maybe that's a big assumption because you can't control everything. But if you have the opportunity with the bank, if they get the title back, both tracks, to discuss purchasing it, the idea is that they're going to want to sell it, rather promptly, and get it off their books and not, enter into a contract with Black Hawk Township that has a contingency for a referendum. I think, those types of contingencies are going to chase any bank that holds their foreclosed property away. So that's the concept. I'm not taking any position. I understand the issues on both sides. I'm just stating the facts and the law as I understand it on the referendum question. So I can just give you that enough. Thank you.
Does anyone on council wish to comment on this?
The only thing about I want to say is, when we did this out, we were very, very proud of this ordinance that we eliminated the $150,000 because of something like the municipal tax. But when anything is brand new, and we were the only ones at the time, you always find glitches. You always find things that maybe need to be edited. And in this particular case, I think this is something that we thought we had all the bases covered, but we got this out.
Thank you. Any other comment from council?
I have some comments. The population in Powhatan has steadily been decreasing since 1970. Today, we have fewer people than before 1960, actually. The population in Powhatan Township has steadily been decreasing since 1970. In 1970, there was 3,924 people. Today, as of 2012, there's 3,300 people. There's fewer taxpayers to pay for an ever-increasing tax burden. I don't want to be the last person here paying all the taxes. There are going to be fewer and fewer people here to pay the taxes. Now, I don't know, frankly. I've seen studies. I see studies that purport to say that the open space initiative saves taxpayers money. The study I saw said that the property values go up, so the tax rates go down. But when you multiply the lower rate by the higher property value, it's a wash, kind of. So in practice, I can understand Chairman Gardner's point of view that, there's going to be more kids. Tomorrow, there's on the school board, there's a proposal to restrict the number of kids that can go out of Powhatan. I heard Mr. Metzger say there's no economies of scale in the school system. But if there's no economies of scale in this system, why are we stopping people from leaving the system? If there's no economies of scale, the more people leave, the lower our costs will be. So it seems like we don't want people to leave the school system. We're restricting the number of people that can leave the school system and opt out of our school system. And at the same time, we don't want people to come in. By buying open space. We don't want any more kids. We need kids in this community. We're aging. We're dwindling. Everybody wants to be the last person last family in the community, and then close the gates behind them. No more. We like it here. We like it nice. We like all our space around us. No more. Nobody else come in. My fear is that with the ever-burdening tax increase, and we're right on the water's edge to Pennsylvania, we're not going to have to close the gate behind us. We're going to have to build a wall at the river so people don't cross it. Now, I take Jerry's point well that if this was so great for tax purposes, 86% of our land is already in the Highland Preservation Area. A couple of years ago, the mayor and Mr. Vangelli received an award on behalf of the township that we had the most acres, number one, the most acres of any municipality in the state for acres preserved. And at the same time, there's a study that we are 540th out of 566 municipalities at the time that in terms of our affordability of our property taxes. I don't know whether or not, and it's hard to say, even though people say it firmly that it's got to pay the taxes. I don't know that it would. But I do know that spending money increases in taxes. And when we have so much open space and we have such a high tax burden, I question, I shouldn't say I question, I trust the taxpayers to vote the right way. And I'm disappointed, and I'm questioning the timing. I bet you, it seems like we're finding a way, we're looking for ways not to have a referendum rather than looking for how we can have a referendum. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Is there any other comment from council? No, council, sorry. Any other, Sal, you have any comment? Sal, you have any comment?
No.
Dave? No. Okay, I just would like to close this. When I moved to Powhatan a long time ago, the areas around Powhat were very similar. Greenwich, Lopat were all the rural communities that we all moved out here for, and I saw the Greenwich Chases and the Lopats pop up, and I saw the change that had on the community, as far as the size, the two schools that each of those communities now have. And they say that politics makes strange bedfellows sometimes, and sometimes I find myself at odds with some people in this room, and sometimes I find them, we agree on a lot of things. And this issue, to me, is something that if we are able to stop the EAI development in my term as mayor, I would consider it probably the greatest accomplishment, because I've always heard about it with Mr. Gardner, hearing with him when I was younger, hearing from Sal when I would have rec meetings speaking about this. And I know what this would do to our community. And it's important to mention that it's all pre-Highlands approval for this property. It's not, they're not restricted to the 5-acre zoning. If so, if the developer brought this land and came in and wanted to build these homes, I mean, we would have, I spoke to the superintendent and she was just giving me rough figures. We'd have to hire 13 new teachers, which is probably $650,000, 253 high school students, 338 elementary school students potentially. And it's, I mean, those are just, that's more than what already go there in Pohat. And to me, if we as a council can stop this, I would be very proud of that accomplishment. And the bond, and I find myself again in a odd position because the bond ordinance was something I was very proud of. And quite frankly, without Frank bringing it to my attention, you know, it would have never came to be. And my concept behind it, in my perspective of it, was to prevent the township from entering into situations that would hurt us in the future. And in this situation, I feel the housing development would hurt us more in the future than the bond ordinance. So it is a very difficult decision for me. But when you look at the big picture and, you know, 20 years from now, when you go down Oberly Road and it's still preserved land, I think that would be great. So. With that, I would like to make a motion to amend the bond ordinance.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, do I have a,
Can we take all five motions?
I don't see a,
That motion would be to waive the application, waive the requirement of an application of additional sewer for Quaker State, but
Firing.
subject to compliance with any FEMA requirement.
I'll second it.
yes.
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 Yes. All right, general public comment. Is there any general public comment? Anything? Yes, Mr. Whoever. We'll go row. We'll go row by row.
I'll be very quick. On a totally separate subject, during the last meeting, Mayor, you weren't here, but I asked a question about Oprah requests, and I know they're very wide, but they're not unlimited. And I specifically inquired as to certain limits that exist on Oprah requests. And I was wondering if the attorney had had an opportunity to look into that. And I specifically asked about building plans, as my reading of the information available was that building plans were exempt from Oprah requests. And I was concerned that people had filed Oprah requests on my property and had illegally obtained those building plans.
Well,
Thanks.
you actually at the meeting provided me with a GCA memorandum for only the Oprah statute itself does not contain any statutory exceptions for building plans. Then, in conjunction with the statute itself, the governor's office promulgated a whole bunch of administrative exceptions initially. Exemptions for building plans were also not in that list, but Oprah is being constantly reviewed by both the Government Records Council and both administrative agencies. And I was not aware, frankly, until last meeting, you gave me a DCA memo. Now, I have not seen that incorporated in a formal regulation anywhere, but you did provide me with a memo where the DCA is suggesting that the administrative agency responsible for building plans and our building department ultimately reports to them. They're suggesting that building plans should be excluded from Oprah requests. The reason being that theoretically there could be security system information, other privileged confidential information that should not be particularly broadly disseminated. And I suppose to a lesser extent, there's some concern for the protection of proprietary rights in the architects that design it. So that certainly makes a certain amount of intuitive sense to me, and I would suggest that building plans themselves should not be produced in conjunction with those. In your specific case, I'm not sure exactly what was or was not produced. I believe I checked with Wanda. And again, traditionally, Wanda is statutorily our Oprah designee, if you will. She has to process every Oprah request received in this township or any department. Generally, Wanda and I work pretty well together. If there's a request comes in, there's a specific concern about it, she'll ship it to me and I'll make a legal opinion. I don't remember whether we went through that process, not in that specific instance. Typically, I'm looking for overbroad with certain things, police reports, seriously enough, or excluded from Oprah, so they don't have to communicate. There are a variety of exceptions that people are unaware. But I have instructed Wanda going forward that those plans are not to be produced. In your case, I think there may have been a barn plan or something that happened to be attached to some type of a DEP permit. So the Oprah request, as it came in, didn't ask for a plan per se. It asked, I believe, when I looked at it, asked for a permit. A plan showing some type of a barn schematic, if you will, was appended to that permit. I'm not quite sure whether that was produced or not, but I would agree with you to the extent that it was in the future. That would be something that I would definitely not be doing. So that we are addressing proactively.
Kevin, when was that ruling made?
I don't know what the date of the memo was. As I said, I haven't seen it reduced to a formal regulatory update, but I think those types of memos are generally getting released by the administrative agency that governs it. So, as I said, I haven't seen it in any of these updated bulletin, but Mr. Enrique did give me a copy of it, and I think it's. And there are some government records council opinions that have danced around the issue that I am familiar with. I will say, by way of example, site plans do have to be produced. So, there's a fine line that's walked there. So even though a site plan has engineering stamps and everything else on it, if an Oprah request comes in for that, subject to being any enhanced costs, they do have to be produced. So it's really just limited to basically architectural plans. I'm not sure yours had a seal on them or not, but frankly, I would expand that generally to an actual building. And that's how we'll deal with going forward.
Is it possible to request the building plans before we?
Well, I don't know. Did we ever figure out whether we actually need to put?
Well, what came out was what was submitted with the DEP permit. I think it has schematic drawings that it.
I mean, I would say to be perfectly candid with you at this point, that would be that with a proverbial bag on that particular one. But fast forward back, I'm not sure what useful. I don't know. We can certainly try. The permit itself to be producible, have to be attended to it. I'll work with Wanda and get that we try to get things right. If we think we get things wrong, I'll take the blame for that one. So that's good. Something I should review the time.
Thank you. Any other public? Yes, Sharon.
Well, on that subject, President, Oprah, I understand, some things need to be private. I'm in charge of the Pineville Cemetery, and all those people are dead. So why can't I request for Wanda on Oprah? Is that an exception?
Yes, that's
So I couldn't get a death certificate for somebody buried in Pineville.
Vital records are specifically excluded from Oprah. They have a specific statutory requirement to get them.
She said I could have it because of Oprah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say because of Oprah, it's because of vital records, Sharon.
Yeah.
Can't.
cannot get it through an
can't.
Oprah request. You have to meet certain requirements under the vital record statutes, and generally speaking, as I recall, you have to have some type of interest in getting the record.
The historian in the township for the cemetery.
Sharon, after September 11th, vital records became
Only volume.
extremely tight. They don't want anyone in the vital records that could be looking at social security numbers, people's names that have passed, and for identity theft.
Thank you.
I think, you know,
Any other public yes, ma'am.
Hello, Rennie Melvin, Winters Road. First, I want to commend the council. I've been in Pahakong Township for about 10 years now, and just recently in the last year, I've actually had an opportunity to be able to come to some of the meetings and get to know the council as well as being part of the Environmental Commission, which I'm highly enjoying. Two things I'd like to just talk hopefully briefly on tonight. First of all, for those of you that know me, including the residents, I'm not a confrontational person. I'm also not easily intimidated by specific people. I've had a career where I have sat on the board in a couple of different companies that I've worked for, and I do understand how they're usually worked and how it should be handled. First of all, this is in regard to the land use board, and since I am not allowed to have open public comment during land use board meetings, I'm bringing this to the council tonight. I have done just a little bit of research. My first opportunity to be with the land use board was back in November. It was the first time I had been to a land use board meeting. And to be honest, I was quite taken back on how one of the residents had been treated by the chair on the land use board. And I hope that that person doesn't take offense to my comments this evening. This is something that I feel very passionate about. I feel that I'm going to represent the residents this evening. I know Mr. Metzger had made the comment that, something in regards to, it's basically, I felt like they were blaming the residents. When in essence, I also saw behavior from the board as well. And it wasn't the best behavior representing who I thought they should be representing. I do feel that the board is at somewhat of a higher standard. The people on the board are being looked at as that. I did, however, have an opportunity to talk to somebody on the land use board, or not the land use board, but on the council regarding this issue shortly afterwards. And at that time, I had been promised that, the actions from the chair would not happen again. And when I finished with that conversation, I was very happy with that. However, I wondered, how could that be? How could someone promise that for someone else speaking publicly? And then the next meeting I came to, I realized that there were no longer any public comments. So that's how they were going to keep that from happening again in the future. In the meantime, I just did a little research, and I found a report on the New Jersey Sunshine Law that was supported by a grant from the National Freedom of Information Coalition, which I find very interesting on the topic of board meetings and open public comment. There is a statement which is short, but to me it means a lot. It states that public comment is crucial for a good working government. While limits may need to be imposed, the public should have a timely outlet for suggestions, questions, or concerns that they may have at a public meeting. That would be just as if one of you were running for office and didn't have a chance to hear what the people were saying and wanted to hear from you. And I think that we really need to bring it back to where it should be, not just when it's a variance for someone or someone has an application out there. I think that people have questions, and I want it to be good terms. I don't think that the residents should be harassing the the members on the board, and I also don't feel that the board should be harassing the residents as well, because, you know, no one wants to be afraid to come in front of the board, especially the land use board. And I know that there's people now who have said to me, you know, I don't want to ever have to come in front of them, and that shouldn't be how it is. They should be able to work that out. This is a small community of great people who really do care about what's happening here. And that is one reason I chose to live in Cohasset. So, you know, let's don't make the residents feel intimidated and afraid to come forward. That shouldn't how this should be. We should be uniting together as a community, as small as this is, in order to help each other and not push the other person away. Kevin, I do have to say, though, you made the comment that other townships within the state, you know, don't hold the open public comment. However, I found 6 so far that do. One is Harrison Township, one is Bedminster Township, Andover Township, Franklin Township, Alamucci Township, and Hopatcong Township. So they do hold the open comments during their land use board meetings. That I couldn't tell you. Oh, there are, yeah. I'm not sure. Mary, I'm sorry.
I didn't say that.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just letting you know those are the ones that I did find that, and I've never been to one, but I have read a lot that there are disputes during these meetings. And unfortunately, land use board probably is going to have more than the town council is going to have. That's really what I wanted to talk, you know, about on the land use board. One other thing on the land use board is that when I watch this town council, I really appreciate, Kevin, the fact that you allow this board to do what they're supposed to do. You're here to represent them and to help them through any of the issues and to make sure that things are run properly and that legally the things that are being said are appropriate and correct. However, the land use board, I feel that Mr. Arrow, I don't know him. He's not a personal friend or anything like that of mine. He is not only the prosecutor, he is the judge, and he is the jury. And I would love to see the board, the members of that board, speak more than just the chair and the attorney. Because I just feel like, why is everybody else up there if he's just doing all the talking and making all the decisions? And, I can understand the legal ramifications, but let other people talk and give them the opportunity and sit back a little bit so that the board members have an opportunity to speak to the residents. The only other thing is, Frank, last meeting at town council, I had requested that the tax assessor maybe be here, and I'm not sure why he was not put on.
Let me address that. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot to say that during my report. Kevin, I don't know if you got a chance to look at what I sent you today. I got a memo from Dan.
I haven't seen that, but I do know we got.
Let me show it to you. You tell me whether I could read it or not. Because I'm paranoid about rights. Basically, Ben is.
If it's a memo from an employee of ours.
Memo that I requested to address your issue.
It's explanatory to what happened recently with all this.
Yeah. All I want to know is if we could maybe in the future maybe get him here.
Well, yeah, I think he's going in for knee surgery, number one.
Okay.
Number two, as Councilman Beckerly would really have any discussion, I think you should come to the public and explain. I think we'll have to do that. If we want to talk to him or about him, we have some formalities, and we will be rights noticing Ben, bring him in here to discuss, what happened. I don't know if Frank has.
Yeah, I've got it here. I mean, it's I basically asked Ben to be here before I knew that he would be out on surgery with his. And he says, Frank, I'm having my left knee replaced on Tuesday the 18th. It's impossible for me to attend. The effective age of all the properties has to be addressed in what we call the F1 screen. When we did the reval, I made all my adjustments through the F5 screen. This was done due to time constraints that I encountered when I first started in Palawan Township. When I was hired, I was under the impression that the reval was done when in fact only the inspections were done. Making adjustments from the F5 screen was quicker than the F1 screen. I believe the values would be taken from the F5 screen, but they weren't. In the future, you won't have this problem. The system has changed somewhat since I last used it 10 years ago. Vital usually has classes on the system, and I'll make a point of taking the next class.
Yeah, about a week ago. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Jerry Kern, I'd like to second to thank the last speaker for her comments. They're right on. It may be true that legally somehow there doesn't need to be as much comment. I would hope this council would promote the land use board to or support public comment pertaining to other items and agenda. It's to promote the public to be involved with the town and the things that are going on. Shutting them out, not allowing them to speak is not a way to promote that. I would hope it's better than that. We can give people a chance to speak. Unfortunately, land use members have to come to the conclusion they're not going to like everything they hear. That's not how it's supposed to work. Democracy doesn't work that way. But they can at least listen. I think that needs to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public? Yes, sir. Oh, you.
Les Nichols, Nellis Woods Road. I have some comments and a question, and I think the council is going to be busy next week, so it'll take 2 weeks to get an answer. I'll understand. I heard a lot of comments tonight about open space and the value of preserving it. I just hope the momentum lasts for more than another month or two and carries on. And along with that, my thoughts are purchasing land and preserving it is only a first step. Along with that, it needs to be managed with a long-term management plan. Sal mentioned some properties are not in the best of repair. That's an example of when things are not managed well. So along with the purchase, I hope there's a lot of thought goes into managing it for the future, different ways and long-term. And I also like to mention about the forestry in everybody likes the ruralness of this township. I just attended an annual meeting of New Jersey woodland owners, or New Jersey Forestry Association, comprised of woodland owners in New Jersey. And unfortunately, they're very unrepresentative, not only from this township, but the state as well. There's a lot of woodland owners that just have it, they do what they can, what they think is right, they don't really actively manage them. So I brought the information. I'd like to submit some information. This is the program, the last meeting, the annual meeting held in March, and it's been in New Brunswick for the last couple of years. It's pretty handy considering it's a statewide meeting. So a very qualified individual present this, very qualified professionals, people with anywhere from 15, 20, 25 years in the business of managing land properly. And there's also some tax changes coming up concerning farmland assessment and woodlot management and woodlot and farmland income reporting. One is the FA1 form, the other is farmland assessment. Managed woodlots are part of that, are listed on the FA1, and there's also a form, a WD1 for the woodlot, which needs to be approved by a certified forester, approved by the state as a management plan. And there's going to be a new supplemental income reporting form statewide coming out. And that's important because it differentiates the soil classifications between A, B, C, and D soil. And if that's not used, I've seen it mentioned somewhere, a tax assessor can arbitrarily assign it a Class A value when you might have a Class B value. And those values are published statewide, and every county varies depending on different things. The productivity potential of the land, the tax base, the tax rate, a lot of things. But it's set it varies by township and county. So what I would like to do is ask the council to consider, and along with these changes, I believe at some point it's going to be mandatory that all tax assessors have training in these new forms and systems. Last meeting, there was many tax assessors there, and there were several from Warren County that I talked to, some quite local, but ours was not there. So in the future, I would ask either our mayor or a designated council person, along with our tax assessor, to attend these at once annual meeting and be up to date. There were some professionals there, Board of Tax Assessors, and one was from Warren County, I was in Blairtown. But it's a very worthwhile cause, and I think it's a good opportunity for our council to get upfront with these changes and be in the leading instead of trying to wait till they happen and try to catch up. Pardon? I have two assessments. I have some farmland and some woodlot. I do.
But our forester always lets us know whatever was not legal. So we have to follow the good management plan. So if we can expect it as a good by the forester, and we do it. So you are managing this. And where I live on Chappaqua, I bet we have at least 4 or 5 people on Chappaqua.
Very well. The tree farm, they're changing the certification too, as far as the acreage and the term, the size requirements. There's a lot of changes coming up. Right, but there's changes coming if you have a large portion and have it all, put it into a stewardship plan. That changes the income requirement. Right, and there's going to be changes with that too, but the main concern is there are going to be changes with the FA1 form, the definition of land actively devoted to agriculture. That's going to be re-examined. And there are things that could be addressed up front and promoted rather than, try to patch it up later when people do the wrong thing. So when I mentioned the numbers about underrepresented, that has nothing to do with the council. That's people in general don't support that.
But everything is required of them. It's left for them to go to a meeting. I mean, because we used to belong to the association. It's like, so you got a mailing and they often there's something you need to go to. If you're interested in leadership, then you have to go to a lot more meetings. You have to discuss a lot more things. But it's not a priority to just go into the woods under the plan that you're operating.
Well, if you feel you can manage fine without it and you feel you're up to date on the information, that's your opinion. But I feel the board as a whole, if they have some representation, it would be better to have the information.
Well, I think for people who aren't, who don't own woodland property, I think I appreciate it. So thank you.
I don't think it's going to change the requirement. I think it'll help the board or council to be more proactive and encouraging good management. There's no change in requirements. Just it helps a lot to make good recommendations and understand things if you've been there, heard it firsthand rather than secondhand. So if you just consider that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Any other public comment?
On what? Okay,
No, Sal.
Louis Gardabona, 1119 Fifth Avenue in Alpha. I was at that land use board meeting when they first initiated the no public comment. And I thought it was pretty unfortunate because what occurred with this ordinance tonight and the whole information with EAI is I sat there in that meeting and there was 2 parties in that meeting. One was the EAI representative and one was the bank representative, and they were talking. And I could have asked some questions. And if I had some questions, it would have been good public information that could have been utilized to actually assist this council in what actually occurred. I thought it was very unfortunate that even if nothing is on the agenda, as was stated by Councilman Slack, that there would be public comments, like if you have a public hearing for a variance or something like that. But if the person who's an interested party is sitting in the audience and they hear something mentioned during the meeting, leaving a public comment at the end of the meeting is helpful, because then they can introduce information that they might personally know about what was just discussed. As long as it stays on the subject of what was discussed, I think it's great for democracy to allow people to participate in that way. And I fully support Councilman Becker's comment that we need more transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, Kevin, just the potential litigation we needed for executive session, I had not seen until.
Well, we had mediation last week.
Yeah.
On the litigation with the clerk, and then I just got this. I guess from our insurance adjuster, kind of summarizes the settlement. We need to discuss this briefly in executive tonight, or everybody wants me to pass out the memo and discuss it in 2 weeks. I guess we could do that. I know we went a little late here tonight. It's up to you guys. All right, well, I mean, if that's the idea, that's what the only thing I had for this session. I'll give you guys, as I said, I discussed with you. That's kind of outlines the proposals that were discussed at the meeting. And that's not for public consumption, obviously. There's a litigation issue, so you don't want to, it probably may be better for you guys to digest those terms and discuss it when we're a little fresher next time if you want, or we can have the executive session, whatever your pleasure is as a council. But please maintain that settlement memo confidential, because you are litigation conflict.
I can do it either way.
It's up to you, Mayor, whatever you want. I think I can tell you, it's going to take a little time. We got to work through it. Go through the permutations. I can also tell you, I don't know that you need him, because I was at the mediation on behalf of the council.
Yeah, that's where I have questions.
But
so I don't.
If you want insurance defense counsel here, he could not be here tonight. He had to be at the mediation.
Yeah.
So
I think we need him here if it's from him.
Well, then maybe the best thing. Why don't you guys just digest that memo? It's well written, short to the point, explains you all the monetary and financial possibilities, and then I'll advise him to hopefully be available for the next meeting.
Yes, I'd like him here.
Okay,
All right.
then, well, I don't need an executive right now. That's somebody. That's your.
Does anyone have anything else on the council?
Not executive, but we have to make a decision tonight on the emergency.
No, we don't. No, we don't. No. They're still meeting. We're still meeting with. Yeah, there's a meeting in 2 weeks that I'm going to.
Oh, you do. Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I want him here.
That's fine. I figured you probably